Indeed, we are ready to go. Welcome into Gwynn and Chris. Tony Gwynn Jr., Chris Ello, Matt Skraby. Trade deadline Tuesday. An hour remaining. Special guest, Kyle Glaser joins us. We got the whole crew here, breaking it all down for you as it comes in. Padres indeed are on the board, ladies and gentlemen. Latest trade, if you hadn't heard. Padres get Tanner Scott, Brian Hoeing. They give up Robbie Snelling, Adam Mazur, Graham Pauley, Jay Bashirs. And so, as we suspected, prices are quite high. Let me welcome in Chris, Matthew, Kyle. How are you guys today?
I'm good, Tony. I'm ready to turn into great performance on the trade deadline day. You know what? I'm a little I'm good, but I'm amazed, honestly, Tony. The Miami Marlins got, it seems like, and I'm going to go to the expert Kyle Glaser here in a second. It's great that he's in studio with us, but it seems to me like the Miami Marlins got twice as much for Tanner Scott as they got for Luis Ariz 4 months ago, maybe even 3 times as much. And Tanner Scott better not allow a base runner to be worth what they gave up for him. A lot. And I understand that the prices are higher right now, but this is a big gamble as far as I can tell for the Padres. But I'm going to leave it to the expert. That's my opinion. I'm not trying to lead him down a certain road. I'm just giving you my thoughts.
Yeah. Kyle, you can speak to this a little bit. I mean, is this a big gamble? I mean, the Padres are where they are. We're in the now. The 3 or 4 guys they gave up, only 2 of them have participated at the big league level. I don't know that they had a ton of success at this level. What's your take on this?
Yeah, so what I would say is this is a very, very, very aggressive move that they are pushing the chips all in to get as far into the postseason as they can this year. Because with what they've done right now, merely getting into the postseason isn't going to cut it. Getting to the wild card round and losing isn't going to cut it. This is, I mean, they got to get to an NLCS and really probably a World Series for everything to pay off here. So I want to take a step back. I mean, Tony, guys get to the big leagues, their first stints all the time. They struggle, they go down, they figure some things out, they come back, they're much better. Adam Mazur and Graham Pauley absolutely struggled here their first stints in the major leagues. Both these are really good players. Adam Mazur has 4 pitches. He's got command. He's a good athlete. Needs to figure out some things. He's going to figure out, all the lessons he learned. He still projects to be a pretty good big league starter long term. Graham Pauley, same deal. Again, has a chance to be at worst, get the majority of the at-bats as a platoon and get 400 ABs as a left-handed hitter hitting 20 bombs a year. I mean, both these guys have that potential and aren't that far away from reaching it, and theoretically could reach it as soon as next year in Miami. And then you look at Robbie Snelling. Robbie Snelling was the best pitching prospect in the system. He has struggled this year. What's happened is he has been nibbling a little bit too much against older, more mature AA hitters. His fastball velocity is down a little bit because he's trying to be too fine, but the stuff is still there. He's still got the fastball, the changeup, the 2 breaking balls. The bulldog mentality is still in there. He just needs a mentality adjustment. He still projects to be a mid-rotation starter or better in the eyes of most external evaluators. So let's not kid ourselves. To your point, Chris, I would say this is a package 10 times greater than what the Padres gave up for Luis Ariz. Wow. The Padres completely fleeced the Marlins and Luis Ariz deal to give up what they gave up and to get the Marlins to pay all of Ariz's contract and to get them to take on all of Woosgo's salary. I mean, the Padres took advantage of a GM that at the time just appeared to be in over his head. This is a completely different situation. The Padres gave up 3 really talented young players who all project to be more or less staples of a big league roster for years to come for a rental reliever who is dominant and could potentially help them this October, but they get him for 3 months.
The question is...
You know something, Tony? What he just answered is what I really wanted to say, by the way, at the beginning of the show, so I could sound a little more intelligent.
Then I'll pose this question to you then.
All right.
Since you're now taking ownership of Kyle's answer there.
Okay.
The question is, when are those guys projected to be your everyday starter or that long term.
Yeah.
Because the Padres window certainly is right now. And so now the question, I think the answer to the question is that the Padres made a deal because the time is now.
Correct.
And so they don't have the luxury at this point. Well, the organization does, but maybe not everybody in it has the luxury of waiting on, what the ceiling of Snelling and Major. And so this is where we are. Padres improve a bullpen that I don't think anybody would argue that certainly needed some help there for sure. They get a little deeper. And so now the question goes, how far can they go? How far will they go? Health is going to determine a lot of this, right? Joe Musgrove working his way back. Yu Darvish is probably a 3 question mark. Toddy, he's due back at some point. And then you start to be able to see what it's really going to look like at this point. But at least from my standpoint, I think A.J. Preller did what he had to do in terms of trying to make this team better. We talked about it yesterday, Kyle, and I'd love to hear your point on this. I made the point yesterday, based on what the Padres gave up for Jason Adam, you knew starting pitching was going to probably have to involve, especially the guys that are on the board, is going to have to involve the top-tier prospects. Clearly, they weren't willing to go there in terms of bringing that type of starter in. Maybe it didn't come together. Maybe it wasn't available. But you just knew after seeing the Jason Adam deal that kind of told me everything you needed to know in terms of what the price tags were going to be for the top-tier guys in this market.
And we've seen, independent of the Padres deals, the prices for pitching, both relief pitching and middle-tier starting pitching, have been startlingly high. Obviously, the Lesko Adam deal, even the deal for Trevor Rogers today between the Marlins and the Orioles. I mean, to get, again, 2 potential everyday big leaguers ready right now for a guy who's been kind of a below-average-ish starter since coming back from his surgery, it's a high price to pay. On the flip side, we've seen the prices for position players be shockingly low. I couldn't believe what the Mariners got Randy Rosarena for, and I have no idea why they haven't gotten Brent Rooker and Jonathan India already, if that's what the cost is. Yeah. But going back to the Padres, you're 100% right, Tony. The Padres are a significantly better team today than they were before they made this deal. And what's important to remember, I mentioned this with Annie and Craig, Adrian Morejon has already at his career high in appearances in a season. He's tied, majors or minors. Jeremiah Estrada has already exceeded his career high in appearances. This is was a 3-headed monster in the bullpen at the end of games. Estrada, Morejon, and Suarez. Estrada and Morejon, their usage, you were concerned about, are they going to make it through the end of the year? Now you add Adam. Now you add Scott. And all of a sudden, this looks like one of the better back ends of a bullpen in Major League Baseball. If you have a lead after 6, you feel pretty good about winning the game. So the Padres are in a really good place. But you said something really important, which was that people not being as concerned about the future because they might not be around. This is a critical year for A.J. Preller. If they don't make the playoffs this year, they will have made the playoffs twice in 10 seasons with A.J. Preller as the GM/head of baseball ops. And that's just not going to cut it. There's a lot of urgency to make the playoffs this year and go deep into the playoffs this year.
I want to just jump on what Kyle said too, Tony. I think his point about where I was going with the word gamble is along what he said about how far they go in the playoffs. Because if they make the World Series, then I'd have been willing to trade anybody to get to the World Series. To win the World Series, you can have. If somebody tells me I can win the World Series with a trade, you can have Ethan Salas and you can have DeVries and you can have every other guy you want. Just give me my World Series. I'll take it and go home. So that's where I think the gamble is. I think if you do make it to where you're hoping this will help you get, then it's all going to be forgotten. But if they do come up short and, some of these prospects that they have now given up, I mean, it is, me, Tony, prospects are prospects. I agree with you 100%. But the more you trade, the more you run the risk of somebody hitting the bullseye. And at least 1 or 2 of these prospects at some point are going to start paying dividends for somebody else out there, and you're going to wish you had them. So, I hope that this all helps the Padres get, let's get to the World Series. Not going to hear any complaining from me.
So it's a World Series or bust for Chris Ello. Just want to put that out there. That's what it sounds
I'm
like.
Piggybacking on our new best pal, Kyle Glaser.
Well, here's what I'll say: if this team wins a wild card spot and loses in the wild card round, that's going to be a failed season with the moves they have made now, with how much they've invested. Because you're right, prospects are prospects. At the same time, the counter argument is every player in the major leagues was a prospect at some point. It's about scouting, player development, and having a massive talent all throughout your system. That's what creates sustainable winners. And with the Padres now, the route they've taken is it's going to probably be pretty ugly come 2026. They're going to restock it, but no one's worried about that right now. They need to go compete right now this year, and they have a chance to. You talked about, Tony, when Musgrove comes back, when Tatis comes back, now that Bogarts is starting to heat up, you have this bullpen. All of a sudden, they kind of line up pretty well against the Phillies, the Dodgers, the Powers, the National League. You feel like you have a chance, but they need to capitalize on that. I would argue if they even get to the division series and lose, it's going to be really, really rough and a tough pill to swallow. I think this team needs to get to a National League Championship Series for you to say, okay, the risk paid off, the gamble was worth it. I think that's kind of the minimum here they need to do with the moves they've made today.
We'll certainly find out. I think, I've been around this organization my entire life, and I just continue to harken back to prior to, before 20, when the Padres got in. It was 2005, 2006 was the last year they had been to the playoffs. And then I fast forward a little bit to the beginning 2014 of the beginning of this rebuild and how tough that was for the 6 years prior to it starting to come together.
Oh, it was brutal.
And so
it was brutal.
when you add all that in there, I'm all for putting the chips in and seeing where it falls, because we watched 6 years of prospects, and really outside of Fernando, none of them turned out to be the big one that you lost, at least as of yet. There's still some question marks out there. C.J. Abrams, James Wood, those guys, doing their thing a little bit. So this is the move they had to make, at least for this season. We'll see where it goes, but there's still another 47 minutes left in this
That's right.
day. So it may not be done yet. It may not be done.
No, and just so people know that the deadline is at 3:00, doesn't mean that we'll hear about every deal that took place before 3:00.
Right.
Some news of other trades could come out at 4:00, 4:30, 5. Who knows? They don't always announce it the second it happens. So I think that's one thing. I think another thing to consider is the Padres, and Kyle's kind of, underscoring this. Have made it clear that they're going for it this year, et cetera. I think we kind of already knew that they were going to go for it this year, especially after this recent 7-game win streak. But you talk about the window for the Padres and the window to be a champion, the window to be a contender for a championship. Don't you think, Tony, that window is still a few more years beyond this one? And the reason I ask that is you're going to get to a trade deadline next year, and you're going to get to a trade deadline the year after that, and I think you're going to be in contention, and I think you're going to want to pick up some pieces. Have the Padres left themselves enough pieces now to get guys not just this season, but next season and going down the road?
I think when you're in this mode, you can't look too far down the line. And not to mention, everybody's a year older next year. So I know they got the core signed up for a long period of time, but they're only going to get older as you get further. So although the window may be open still, it's not as wide. The window is starting to close. Now, there are obviously complications every year when it comes to, who's on your roster. Is the timing right to move some guys? And not to mention, at the end of the day, you still have two of the top-tier prospects in all of baseball still on your roster, still in your organization. So I don't think you worry about 2025 next year. I just think right now you're in a position, your team has really earned, I think, the right to compete for it. The way they've played despite the injuries, I think they've earned the right to be able to put the chips in the middle of the table and say we're going for it. And so, and that's putting the AJ Preller stuff aside, just based on how this team has played. I think it would have been reasonable for you to question whether the Padres should make a move when you started the season, because there were so many question marks. You didn't know what you were going to get out of left field. You didn't know what you were going to get out of center field. You didn't know what the back end of this rotation was going to look like. And quite frankly, all of those questions have been answered, at least to this point of the season, with an astonishing, level of play. And so I think the Padres did what they had to do. I think they would have loved to get a starter, and they still may. Like I said, there's still 44 minutes left of this deadline. They still may do something, but given what the market looks like, I think they've done a pretty good job of at least handling one issue that I think could pop up and come back to hurt them.
And I think you've hit the nail on the head, Tony, and we've talked about this. I think trying to view this through the prism of future years, all these deals were made with, we are trying to maximize our chances to win 2024 right now. The future be damned. I mean, that's what these moves have been. They have paid heavy prices. They've emptied out a lot of key guys from the farm system to, get relievers who absolutely make the team better, but may not have the impact that you would think of when you think of what some of these trade packages would have looked like going into the deadline. But I think a key point you also made is this team has earned the right to go all in for. And I keep going back to, if I had told you before the season, if I had told anyone here before the season, all right, Joe Musgrove, Yu Darvish, and Fernando Tatis are going to miss most of the year with injuries. Xander Bogaerts is going to get hurt and struggle for most of the first half. Ha-Seong Kim is going to take a huge step backwards, and a lot of the bullpen pieces aren't going to work out as hoped. You would have thought, oh crap, the Padres are going to be in trouble. They're going to be in last place, or not last place with the Rockies, but you would have thought they'd be, close to the bottom of the NL standings.
Come on, Kyle, nobody could be that bad.
Right, and in
last place with the Rockies,
and all those things have happened.
Yeah.
And look where they are. They're in playoff position. That's a testament to Jurickson Profar and Jackson Merrill and all these guys stepping up and the coaching staff. I mean, and now you say, hey, our peak is still ahead of us with Musgrove coming back, with Tatis coming back, and Bogaerts is starting to heat up. This is a team worth going all in for, and this will absolutely help the clubhouse. So I understand them doing it, but you're right. This is about this year and this year alone. They're going to worry about future years and future years, because this was an all-in kind of day for the Padres.
I tell you what, I'll let you take over. I'll let you kind of jump in here, Chris, after this. The other thing you got to keep in mind is they kind of pushed the chips in the middle of the table last year, and it didn't work out. And so this year has that kind of – it's a part of the story on why you are pressing it the way you are. I don't think it was a guarantee that the Padres would push their chips into the middle of the table this year. I think it kind of was a wait and see how this team performs before we make a decision one way or the other. They made the decision because the team has played well. And so I just think it's important to have that in the backdrop. This is a team that last year had a very high expectations after getting to a division, a league championship the year before and missed the playoffs last year. So that window that really started in 2020. This is a year 4 of this window. How long can you realistically have that window open? And I think that is the kind of prism you have to view this, because otherwise, if you're just looking at it solely for this year, I think you're kind of missing the story. The story. This is a 4-year process at this point, and so they've reached the playoffs in 2022. Maybe the even years are special for the Padres because they didn't make it last year, and they still may do some other things, Chris.
Yeah, I'm going to just finish with one thing for this segment, Tony, and we're going to carry on with it all day long. And I do want to remind everybody that our friends at Round Table Pizza in San Diego are helping us bring to you our 2024 trade deadline coverage. And Kyle Glaser is here, and Tony's down at the stadium. I would have felt a whole lot more comfortable if they would have, maybe just something to think about heading into the break. I would have felt a whole lot more comfortable if they would have given this package up and gotten the starting pitcher they really, really need in return. But they didn't. They got another reliever that gives them amazing depth at a position they'd already added depth to. And that's just something I just think a
So
different way of
would you
looking
have been
at it.
would you have felt better if they would have given up let's say Salas and two of these guys in this package and got a starter? Would you have felt better then? It's still giving up the same boat that you're giving up.
Yeah. I would have felt good giving this boat up and getting a starting pitcher.
Yeah, that's not happening. That's why they got a reliever, because that price
Crochet?
was.
Do I who?
You want Garrett Crochet?
I don't.
Okay,
I
well
don't.
then you can't. Beggars can't be choosers, Chris.
Well, I'm going to try anyway.
All right, let's get to break. More trade deadline when we return. Listen, 97.3 The Fans 2024 trade deadline coming to a close here pretty quickly. So sit back, relax, enjoy. More Gwynn and Chris on the way.
Don't let a clogged drain.
right, welcome back to Gwynn and Chris and Kyle Glaser sitting in and Matt Skraby and all of us hanging with you. 97.3 The Fans 2024 trade deadline coverage presented by San Diego Roundtable Pizza. To that end, by the way, a special Padres Roundtable tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. to break all this down.
As we were breaking into the last segment,
Yeah.
I started to read the top part again.
I knew it.
And I realized, like, right at the last second that, oh, wait, I think Chris just read this. So I pivoted.
Good move by you.
Did you catch the pivot, though?
Oh, I
Was it
did.
smooth?
I did. It was smooth because you could see me in the chat probably or in the camera like laughing a little bit.
I
but it was
couldn't
good.
see you.
It was good. It was
It was a
very
good pivot, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Tony Gwynn
that
Jr.,
was.
smooth operator.
I was like, wait, I don't actually have to ask him now because he recovered so well.
You did that nicely, Tony. We are hanging with you. The trade deadline is at 3 o'clock. But as mentioned earlier, stick around because the announcement of some trades could come down after 3 o'clock. Padres have made a big move today. They have acquired left-handed reliever Tanner Scott, formerly the closer of the Marlins, an all-star this year. Skraby was reading me some of his statistics. His ERA plus, Skraby said, is like makes him 3 times better than any other pitcher in baseball.
According to ERA plus.
According to that,
Yes.
yeah. Low ERA, low whip, gets a ton of strikeouts. And the Padres bullpen, there's no argument there. Their bullpen is special. At least on paper right now. I mean, with Suarez, that's right. On paper, these guys still have to go out and get it done. But you got Suarez closing it down. But you've got now Tanner Scott. You've already added Adam from the Tampa Bay Rays. And you still have Jeremiah Estrada and Adrian Morejon. And, oh, by the way, just for fun, you still have Yuki Matsui and Wandy Peralta. So the bullpen is looking terrific.
Can I just hop in real quick? Because I wanted to say something that Kyle mentioned earlier. And, I think it's something to pay attention to because there's been no indication that the Padres are concerned about some of these guys in their innings limits. But it is a thing. And Morejon, as mentioned, as one of the guys who has already kind of reached his limits. Jeremiah's another guy. And I think having guys now, because basically they have 2 sets of set up 7th and 8th inning guys now, which is something they didn't have. And a lot of the really good teams have like a set of guys that, when the guys who are run out there on a normal basis, might be down, you got another set of guys that you can lean on. And I think the Padres have that. But I also think it's important to be mindful of those innings from some of the younger guys like Estrada or somebody like Morejon who has, had dealt with injury over the past couple of seasons. It's something to keep in mind of in terms of this bullpen and how the depth will actually work out towards the end.
I think go ahead, Kyle.
I was going and to be clear, these bullpen upgrades were something that needed to be made. Entering today, Padres were 19th in the majors in bullpen ERA. They're right next to the Tigers and Nationals in bullpen ERA, teams that we're not talking about in postseason contention. And to get through the gauntlet that is a postseason now, especially if you have to play in that wild card round, which the Padres most likely will have to, you've got to have a depth of arms. And Tony's exactly right. As I mentioned earlier, Jeremiah Estrada has already surpassed his career high in appearances, majors or minors. Adrian Morejon he's tied with his career high in appearances in a season, majors or minors. And importantly, Morejon has never stayed healthy for a full season in his entire career, dating back to the day he signed when he was 16 years old. Throughout the minors, the majors, he has never stayed healthy through a full season. So you need to build in this insurance. You need to build in more guys that can get you to the end of games. And you're right, you look at this bullpen now, you line it up. If on a day when everyone's available, you have Estrada or Morejon to take down the 6th for you. You then go Adam in the 7th, Scott in the 8th, Suarez in the 9th.
Ooh.
I mean, that's one of the best bullpens in baseball. So you go from a weak point, again, they're 19th in the majors in bullpen ERA, and turn it into a strength. That's a pretty big transformation. And you understand, again, the Padres paid a very heavy price to do this, and it probably will hurt their future, but it greatly enhances their present.
I think another way of looking at this, too, with the addition of the bullpen guys is look at the starting rotation that you have right now. Dylan Cease, you're not worried about going forward. Michael King, he's already 20 innings over anything he's ever pitched before. With this kind of bullpen, Michael King shouldn't have to pitch longer than 5 innings the rest of the season.
Hey,
Matt Waldron is also stretching out. Yeah. He's at 118 innings. You know, he's never been anywhere near this at the big league level. He shouldn't have to pitch more than 5-6 innings in a start anymore. I don't know about Vasquez, Brito. It depends on who else you fill in. But as Kyle says, I mean, Tony, they can close the game down from the 6th inning now.
It is a great point because, as you're paying attention to guys like King and Waldron who haven't pitched this many innings, you can start shaving some innings off. Now, you're doing that at the, I don't want to say detriment. That's probably too strong a word, but those are innings that you could be saving for your bullpen at some point. But specifically with those two guys, it's another way that you can manage their innings, because there's been a few games this year where King has been rolling, and I think they've erred on the side of getting him out early because they're mindful of those innings and him approaching a number that he's never been at before. So I think this gives Mike Shildt options, not only with the bullpen and the things that are going on there, but it also gives him some room to work with some of the starters that are also getting up there in innings.
Yeah, it gives you some maneuverability, to be sure. Tanner Scott is a Padre, Robbie Snelling, Adam Major, Graham Pauley, one other minor leaguer on their way to Miami. An expensive haul that the Padres pay to add an all-star to their bullpen. They'd already added one with the acquisition of Jason Adam from Tampa Bay, and now they will set their sights on who? A closer? Do they have anything left to trade for a closer?
They don't need a closer.
I'm sorry, not a closer, a starter. I meant starter.
What are we talking about?
Yeah, let's get another reliever. Why not?
Did you guys see what Joe
Is Josh Hader available? Can we bring him back?
No, come on, Chris.
Come on now.
Did you guys see what Joe Musgrove said the other day? That he is trying to work his way back, but he's not built up enough yet, and that he doesn't mind being an opener. And it was something that he mentioned to AJ and all of those guys, so that he can start, he can pitch, and then he.
You
can
know what
eat
this
some
makes
innings.
me think of? This makes me think of how much guys hate having to go down to the minor leagues to rehab. That's the first thing I thought of when I heard it. Of course, it would be beneficial, but that's how much these guys hate going down to rehab.
Tony, you're telling me you don't want to go spend a hot August summer afternoon in Lake Elsinore?
Or El Paso or something?
I think that's what they're all telling us, is what I'm gathering from it. But it's I think that speaks to Joe's willingness to really do anything for the team, and also stay out of Lake Elsinore if he can. Certainly, being able to use a guy like Joe Musgrove as an opener, I think he has the right mental makeup to kind of put himself in that kind of mode, and he's a chameleon when it comes to that stuff, and that's why I think Joe is one of the leaders. He just really does anything that he can to help this team, and that's just another way he could do it.
All right, one trade just came down moments ago. The Pittsburgh Pirates going to get utility man Isaiah Kiner-Falefa from the Toronto Blue Jays. We'll go over some of the other trades that have gone down so far today, along with the Padres acquiring Tanner Scott, what they all mean, and a little bit more on what the acquisition of Tanner Scott means and where the Padres go from here with Kyle Glaser, our baseball expert today, along with Gwynn and Chris on 97.3 The Fan.
Ben and Woods on
2:42 on the clock. I guess because it's a trade deadline today, we get to blow through our timelines because Skraby hasn't complained one time about us being 10 minutes over in the first segment, 5 minutes over in the second.
Losing battle today, so I'm just going to let it go.
The 97.3 The Fans 2024 trade deadline coverage is presented by San Diego Roundtable Pizza. And we'll be filling ourselves up with some of that. Yes, indeed.
This is making me hungry, all these ad reads. I'm like craving pizza now.
Hey, welcome to our world.
Yeah, I sit in that room hungry all the time having to do these reads. I'll be able to eat some of that round table tomorrow because we will be having a special edition of the round table tomorrow morning. Gentlemen, we are winding down. 17 minutes until the deadline is officially done. Kyle, do you think there's going to be let me ask you this, because we talked a little bit about it yesterday. Do you think Crochet, kind of kept himself in Chicago with his agent's comments? Because it certainly seems like teams have that conversation has quieted down a little bit. And what's it going to cost at this point? Like there's going to be somebody giving up a bunch of prospects if they get them, and either willing to let him get an extension, having had the injury history he has, and not having to have a full year to prove it, or making the deal and saying, we're good with you sitting out the postseason if we give up all these prospects.
I can't imagine a contending team being willing to trade a marquee haul for a frontline starting pitcher who says, I'm done, I'm shutting it down at the end of the regular season. If you're trading for Garrett Crochet, you're trading for him because he has electric stuff that will play in the postseason.
Right.
I think the biggest thing with him, I think we do need to kind of keep in mind that came from a media report. Both Crochet and his agent actually haven't said anything yet. It was a media report, and then Chris Getz kind of talked about it, giving some validity to it. But it's always important to note sometimes things get lost in translation, and not all reports are 100% accurate, or there's some details that get left out. But I think speaking generally, based on what is out there and what we do know, yes, I mean, this absolutely makes trading for him more difficult from the White Sox perspective. You're not going to get as much because it's out there. Hey, if he's not going to pitch in the postseason, or it's going to cost us money and prospects, we're not giving you this standout haul you want. And from a team that wants to acquire him, it makes you kind of think twice about it now, because you say, you know what? Yeah. Maybe we just wait till the offseason, try and get him then, rather than take this risk right now.
You could get him for a whole year, a whole season, and give up the same amount, and then possibly have him for another year after. The thing that I will say, because Kyle, I know you were being very diplomatic there, because you're right, we haven't heard anything from the agent, but we also haven't heard anything from the agent, meaning he also hasn't denied that he didn't say that, because that would be the first thing I would do if I was an agent and I did actually say that. I'd be out there the very next hour like, hey, that's not true, we're not looking for an extension if you were traded. But that hasn't happened, so I'm gonna go on the side of believing it was said at this point. I just thought that was a wild move. And not to mention, you're on the worst team in baseball. Is there any part of you that doesn't want to be in the worst team in baseball?
And not just the worst team in baseball, a team that is on pace to be the worst team of all time losses-wise. The White Sox are on pace for 121 losses, which would be the most since the 1899 Cleveland Spiders. And that entire organization is dysfunctional. I mean, from the ownership on down, you have a GM in place who, Chris Getz is an ex-player, nice farm director, should not be a GM, has no experience necessary to be a GM. I mean, it's a dysfunctional organization, not a great stadium, not a great part of the city. Like, there's very little about the White Sox right now where you say, oh yeah, this is a place I want to be. So, I mean, if I were him, I'd be like, hey, get me out of here. I want to pitch in the postseason. I want to go to a contender. I want to go to a functional organization. And the fact that he is choosing not to, or prioritizing other things over that, is his prerogative. But if I'm a team looking to acquire him and say, do I really want a guy who, in the postseason, we want someone who's going to put his nose to the grindstone for us, give us his all. Maybe he's tired, but he's going to give us another inning because we need it. And he's pretty much told you he's not that guy.
Yes.
Not the guy at all. Crazy.
I will say this, and this is just to play devil's advocate. He hasn't had a healthy season, really. This is his first one, and this is his first year starting. So there is a scenario in which, maybe he don't, in terms of if the extension thing is true and it was asked for, I could see a scenario in which why he would ask for that, not understanding or not knowing what his body is going to be able to hold down over the long haul. And so you try to strike while the iron's hot. We'll see how that kind of unfolds. Kyle, any other guys you looking at right now that, could possibly be moved or, teams that you think could still be active here?
I'm still
aside from the Padres.
I'm still waiting for the Mariners to strike. One of the things that I mentioned at the top of the show was that we've seen the prices for starting and relief pitching be exorbitantly high, and the prices for position players be shockingly low. The trade for Randy Arozarena, which the Mariners made, Aiden Smith's a nice center field prospect who's certainly good, but he's not a stud of studs. Brody Hopkins is okay, he's interesting, but I mean, this is for
Baltimore just got an acquisition. I don't know if you guys saw that.
Eloy Jimenez, that's coming up. Yeah, I mean, we'll see what that return looks like. So I think for the Mariners and even the trade for Isaac Paredes with the Cubs, I was shocked how light that return was. And the Cubs, they talk about are they selling or not. At that price point, you make that trade no matter where you are. So if I'm the Mariners, I'm still kind of shocked Brent Rooker's not already a Mariner. Jonathan India should already be a Mariner. Luis Robert should probably already be a Mariner. I mean, with how low the price has been for position players, the strength of the Mariners farm system and how desperately they need, not just one or two more guys. They basically need almost an entirely new lineup to be legitimately competitive come October. I'm expecting Jerry Dipoto, who, like AJ Preller, loves to make trades, here in the next 11 minutes. They need to make a lot of trades. If they don't, it's going to be a failed trade deadline for the Seattle Mariners.
Well, you mentioned Eloy Jimenez. That's another Chicago White Sox. It is. Somebody brought this up to me the other day, and I thought it was a fair question. Why does everybody want all these White Sox? They're all part of the worst team in baseball history, but individually, they sound like pretty good players. We know Eloy Jimenez has some ability. He goes to Baltimore. I think the winner in all of this, I was going to ask you who you think the winning team is so far, Kyle. But I think the biggest winner in all of this is probably Major League Baseball again. And I say that because I'm looking at today's trades and yesterday's trades. I count 17 teams that have added at least one significant piece. That tells me that there's more than half the teams are believing that they got a chance to win and do something now. And it wasn't always like that at the trade deadline.
Wasn't.
It used to be 4 or 5 teams would be, gobbling up all of the available players. But from Seattle to the Yankees, Philadelphia, Cubs, Dodgers, Cardinals, Astros, Milwaukee, Atlanta, Arizona, Mets, Cleveland, Baltimore, Kansas City, Minnesota, Pittsburgh, Padres, every one of them added something in the last 2 days.
And I can tell you why that number is 17 exactly. Because there's 17 teams exactly in postseason contention. You have your 12 teams in playoff spots right now.
Right.
And 5 other teams within 2 games of a playoff spot.
There you go.
That
what's
17
interesting
number
about
there's a reason. Yes.
What's interesting about that is every year there's usually teams that are on the outskirts looking in, and there's usually a handful that decide, we're not going to participate in this deadline. Not the case this year, and you hope that this is something that gains momentum, and it's like this every year. You hope that this is what the whole intention of adding the playoff teams was for, and that it continues, because this is the kind of active deadline that Major League Baseball benefits from. It puts it in the same, I won't say the same realm, but along the same road traveled as the NFL and NBA when that deadline comes.
Yeah.
Too often it's a dud in Major League Baseball. But over the last couple of seasons, we're moving in the right direction, it feels like. So that's certainly something to be encouraged about.
I think, too, Chris, to your point about why do people want all these White Sox players, and Tony, you can speak to this. they see it as low-hanging fruit that these are talented players in a dysfunctional organization, and if you can bring them over and get them with good coaches, get them with the right everything, the right trainers, the right health, and a better environment, you're going to get peak performance, kind of like the Padres did just with Dylan Cease this year. Dylan Cease had a really rough year last year, but you looked at it and said he plays in a hitter's ballpark with a terrible defense behind him and a dysfunctional organization. Let's bring him over. They did the same thing with Joe Musgrove when they acquired him from the Pirates. They were a dysfunctional organization, famous for having guys leave Pittsburgh and be really, really, really good, again, because their organization was a disaster. That's where the White Sox are now. That's where you see teams saying, hey, we can bring this guy in and help him get better. I mean, Tony, you were fortunate. You never played for like the Marlins when they were a dysfunctional organization, but I mean, I know you've played with teams where when everything was clicking and others where it wasn't. It makes a big difference going to a good place to be.
My idea changed once I signed with the Dodgers in 2010 or 2011 because that was McCourt's last couple years and it was dysfunctional. And then it was like almost like night and day when the new ownership took over. Everything slowly but surely just got progressively better. And that was the first time it dawned on me that it actually is a trickle-down effect from the top to the bottom. If the top is solid, eventually it works its way down to the field. And, here we are in 2025. 2024, same ownership in LA. It has trickled its way down, and so I think and this is why people who don't buy into chemistry and kind of like what's going on around players, those players are just symptoms now of a bigger issue in Chicago. You can't tell me that Eloy Jimenez isn't talented. You couldn't tell me Dylan Cease wasn't talented. They all struggled in that place last year, all of them, and I think as you start to see guys leave that area, they get better because they are talented. But when you're stuck in that environment, you typically tend to play in that environment and be in that. It's hard to be mind strong enough to just kind of overpass that while you're in it. It's really difficult. That music means it's time to go to break. When we come back, there'll be no more deadline. It'll be over officially. We won't necessarily have all the deals, but we'll get them to you. We're Gwynn and Chris on the other side.
Congratulations, you played yourself.
That is for Garrett Crochet. Reports are saying now that the left-hander of the Chicago White Sox will remain a Chicago White Sox. We kick off hour number 2 of our 2024 Major League Baseball trade deadline coverage. It's presented by San Diego Roundtable Pizza. Whether or not you think the first hour was successful for the San Diego Padres acquiring Tanner Scott, all-star left-handed reliever from the Miami Marlins, trading quite a package to get him, including Robbie Snelling, Adam Mazur, and Graham Pauley, all going back to the Marlins, plus another minor leaguer in that deal. Whether or not you think that was good news or not is up for debate. Whether the commercial break that we just had was good or bad news is not up for debate. It was most assuredly not good news for the Padres. That is because during the break, the Los Angeles Dodgers have struck Tony Gwynn Jr.
Yes, they have.
And Jack Flaherty, the right-hander who's having a remarkably great rebirth of a season this year.
This is one of the better bet on yourself free agent deals.
This guy has a 7-5 record this year while pitching with the Tigers. He has a 2.95 ERA. Here's the number that jumps out at you: 0.96 in the WHIP.
Whippy.
Yeah, he's doing quite well. 133 strikeouts, only 19 walks. Flaherty now comes to the Dodgers. The Dodgers also, just for fun, acquire another center fielder, a Gold Glove type center fielder, Kevin Kiermaier, from the who's he been with lately?
He was back with Toronto. He was back with Toronto.
Okay, I knew he'd run around a lot. He's now with the Dodgers. So that commercial break, Tony, did not go so well.
That's not it either. Apparently, Yniel De Los Santos on his way to the Yankees.
We're giving up Yniel De Los Santos.
Yes.
Well, we have to make room for some of these relievers.
There's another one that's being reported. Don't know if it's a done deal or whatnot, but the Martin Perez trade to the Padres, lefty, starter. He had been starting. I think he's still starting.
Yeah, he's been hurt on and off this season. Just returned to the Pittsburgh Pirates. Has not been exactly a phenomenal year so far for Martin Perez. He's 2-5 with a 5.20 ERA. He has made 16 starts, but he has had some success, mostly with the Texas Rangers. In fact, Martin Perez has had 6 double-digit winning seasons in his career. All time, he's 87 and 86.
I would say this matches kind of that back into the rotation type deal, right? That's a left-handed pitcher. You need innings right now. I mean, as you are pushing, yes, you got to get wins, right? You got to stay healthy. But where the Padres are deficient at is starting pitching and being able to eat innings. They've gotten 3 guys for sure that have done it well: Waldron, King. I'm missing one. Oh, and Cease. Vasquez has improved. He had a rough one this last time. But you got to have some guys who can eat some innings. If Martin Perez is healthy, he can do that.
I think the thing that is just a slight concern here is Perez has just not been very good.
No.
And, even last year with Texas, he did okay in his swingman role, but, come postseason time, he was not a major part of the run. He was, in the bullpen pitching sparingly and didn't really pitch well when he was used. So I think if you're the Padres, you want a back-end lefty. I would be curious to know if they made a serious run at Tyler Anderson up the freeway in Anaheim. Tyler Anderson very, very, very quietly has been one of the best pitchers in Major League Baseball this year.
Oh, yeah, Padres saw him earlier this year. He carved.
Sub-3 ERA, pitching consistently into 6, 7s, and even 8 sometimes. Made an All-Star game, has postseason experience, pitched well, including against the Padres a few years ago. It's a little tricky with the contract because he's owed $13 million next year, plus the remainder of that this year. But if you were going to go get a back-end lefty starter, Tyler Anderson is vastly superior to Martin Perez. Perez is owed $8 million this year's salary, so the prorated version of that. I'd be curious to know if they seriously pursued that, because I don't really know how much help Martin Perez is going to give them unless you're just trusting the Ruben Niebla magic, which, again, could be very viable, but it's not like you look at this and say, ooh, this really upgrades the back of the rotation based on what he's shown this year.
I don't want to sound the alarm, but he's coming from the same team that Rich Hill came from last year. 1.65 whip this year for Martin Perez, 1.40 last year, which isn't great, in a season that he went 10-4. So the last few years have been rough for Martin Perez, Tony.
I'll say this. I don't necessarily think it needs to be a playoff type move. You got to get through these regular season games healthy enough and with the right guys. And so Martin may be just a move to help you do that, to get through the regular season. Doesn't mean that he needs to be on the postseason roster if he's not deserving of so. So, I think we start trying to get the perfect fit in every little nook and cranny that you have on your roster. That's just not typically how it works. When, we go back to some of the last couple years, the Padres have made big time deals, but then when the roster was all set, there were still holes in that roster, even with those big deals made. And so this is a little bit different tack this year. The Padres, I think, somewhat handcuffed because of financial reasons, and also handcuffed because, as we talked about, so many teams are involved that the price tags are up. And so, I'm sure, listen, what I can tell you is I promise you, A.J. Preller has looked everywhere to find the right kind of deal that he can make. And if this ends up being it, probably was the best deal he could come up with right now, and given the landscape of everything.
The one thing with Perez I'm be curious to see is he went on the IL with a groin strain earlier this year. Off to a good start, then struggled a little bit. Since coming off the IL, it's been rough. 6.31 ERA. He did pitch well his last start, so maybe he's turning a corner, but that's something I'm going to be watching for, because you're right, you need guys to get through the end of the season. I think the concern is he's been so bad recently, he's not a guy you really want pitching for you even, down the stretch. Yeah. So I think that's where I'll be curious to see how they utilize him. Maybe they, plug him in the fifth spot, skip some starts. I want to see what he can do coming off this injury, because it's been particularly bad since coming off the IL.
That voice is Kyle Glaser, our baseball trade deadline expert here on Gwynn and Chris today. Nice enough to sit in with us for the last couple of hours and to break down all of the stuff that's going on. If you just tuned in, Padres have indeed acquired Tanner Scott. That is a done deal. The Martin Perez has been reported, I think, maybe on one tweet, so we better be just 100% sure before we go ahead and make that official. I don't know that anyone's made that 100% official on Martin
Like
Perez.
I said, it's been reported. We haven't
Right.
nobody has actually confirmed that or not. So we'll wait to see if it actually happens.
If that's the guy. Let me ask you, Kyle, about Jack Flaherty, though, going to the Dodgers.
The return just came in.
This is the biggest news of the last 10 minutes, and how big is it?
Well, the return just came in. I can tell you right now, the Dodgers gave up a heck of a lot less for Jack Flaherty than the Padres gave up for Tanner Scott. A heck of a lot less. If this was the price for Jack Flaherty, the Padres should have done this. No questions asked. So, first of all, I think we need to establish who Jack Flaherty is and how good he is. You have to remember, this was one of the best young pitchers in baseball for a 4-season run. Then he struggled with some injuries. His first year back was last year, had some ups and downs after, again, being more or less hurt for 2 seasons. And now he's back to being a stud. I do think this is who Jack Flaherty is. When he's healthy, when he's right, when he's fresh, he is a stud type of pitcher. And that's what he's pitching like in Detroit this year. Now he's going to go to LA and do that. The players he was traded for, Taylor Ronzo is a power-hitting, low-level catcher who has power, switch hitter, but he swings and misses a lot, and he's a big boy who might not be able to stay behind the plate. Trey Sweeney is an organizational shortstop. I mean, again, you talk about rental prices. The price for Tanner Scott, the Padres paid 5 times on the dollar what the Dodgers just paid for Jack Flaherty.
What's Tanner's situation? Is he a free agent?
Yeah, Tanner's a free agent after this
Tony.
year. I mean, they also got Brian Hoenig, who, again, who's a nice reliever, but he's not why you would pay that price.
Well,
you also I think we also got to take into account the Padres and the teams they deal with I shouldn't say that. Teams view prospects differently in different organizations. And, I don't know who – I recognize one of the names that went back, the power hitting catcher from the Dodgers. I don't know Sweeney very much. But, I think, as it pertains, they may not have liked the guys the Padres were willing to give up for it. And it has to be a matchmaking deal. So I know on paper it looks like, man, the Padres should have just went and got Jack Flaherty. But if said team, Detroit Tigers, didn't like the guys the Padres were offering, then this is what you get.
It's a moot point, is what you're saying, and you're right, Tony. The other team has to be interested in what you've got to sell, and maybe the Tigers weren't. Maybe the Tigers are just rooting for the Dodgers to come out of the NL West. I mean, God forbid, anybody should give the Padres a break. But, Flaherty goes with what? Tyler Glasnow, Clayton Kershaw. The Dodgers all of a sudden now have bolstered up their starting rotation after it was in tatters for much of the season. And because of the injuries to Buehler and to Kershaw and to even Glasnow for a little while and many, many others. So, this is one of the bigger names in the last 2 days that have been traded. Certainly the biggest starting pitching name. And Flaherty winds up a Dodger.
He's a stud, man. The last couple of years, as Kyle mentioned, have only been that way because he wasn't right. Now he's right, and this is who he was, that 2020 run, 2021. I mean, this is who he has been. Yeah. And so the Dodgers get a good one. I mean, the Dodgers got a lot better too. So, Padres have closed the gap in terms of the division, and they got better. But so did they. So did the Dodgers. And so the good part about it for the Padres, I think they've gotten a lot better. I think I don't know that the Diamondbacks have gotten that much better. I don't know. The Giants clearly have stood where they were because that I don't think they really know if it's real for them. And so, you may not have been able to close the gap on the Dodgers in the division, but I think you've separately given yourself a chance to maybe separate from the Diamondbacks, who are clipping at your heels right now.
Well, the Arizona Diamondbacks today did get our old friend Josh Bell. They acquired him. Poor Josh Bell. I mean, I don't care what this guy does. He gets traded at the trade deadline. Is this the third year in a row? I can't keep track of where he's even been and where he's gone. Arizona also picked up left-handed reliever A.J. Puck from the Marlins. Puck was the closer last year ahead of Tanner Scott. Yeah. This year, Tanner Scott became the closer. Puck became a starter, was terrible, and they moved him back to the bullpen where he's actually been pretty good. So the Diamondbacks did do their thing. But, the Padres bullpen, that's the one thing for sure. We can just say this, and we can debate the rest of it, but the Padre bullpen is legit right now with the acquisitions of Tanner Scott today and Jason Adam over the weekend. Tony, I know you got a ball game tonight. We've been talking about this trade deadline. Can't forget the Dodgers are in town for game one of a two-game series. You might have to do a little pregame preparing. So
I'm playing catch-up because I haven't done anything. I haven't done any lineups.
Oh, my
Just
goodness
been out here
gracious.
running my mouth with you guys, watching Jesse get ahead of me and do all his work. So
all right,
I
Tony,
got some catching up
off
to do.
you go. Kyle Glaser is going to be nice enough to stick with us for another segment or so. When we come back after we check traffic, just a quick recap of who's gotten who and a quick comment from Kyle on what he thinks about some of the moves that have been made the last couple of days. More Gwynn and Chris on the way.
From the 97.3 The Fan Traffic Center.
All right, welcome back. 320. Gwynn and Chris, baseball trade deadline program with Kyle Glaser. Not acting as our baseball expert. He is our baseball expert. Boy, it's nice to have him with us. We appreciate it. He's going to be here for a little while longer. Our trade deadline coverage presented by San Diego Roundtable Pizza. If you're just tuning in, Padres go bullpen with Tanner Scott, the all-star reliever, closer from the Miami Marlins, coming to the Padres. Padres also get an interesting piece in this trade, too. As I read up a little bit more on Brian Hoeing, a guy that was an opener for the Marlins, can go 2-3 innings in that role, all the way to a back-end type guy. So they pick him up in this trade as well. Padres do pay a rather steep price to get Tanner Scott as they trade away the likes of Robbie Snelling, Adam Major, and Graham Pauley. Padres have also acquired Martin Perez, left-handed starter from the Pittsburgh Pirates, albeit Perez 2-5 and a whip of 1.6. I don't want to sound like, Rich Hill all over again, but the numbers do not add up too well for Martin Perez, so we'll see where the Padres go there. Jack Flaherty just went to the Dodgers. We've got Kyle Glaser with us for a few more minutes. You talked about that. I'm going to give you a couple of these moves that have been made the last 2 days, Kyle, and just give me like a one and a half sentence on each of these things. How good of a move, what it does for this particular team. I think you answered Jack Flaherty going to the Dodgers. Does Josh Bell find any opening space in Arizona?
It was a good trade for the D-backs considering Christian Walker just went on the IL. They needed a first baseman.
Yeah.
Again, is Josh Bell going to be the guy that, carries them back to the World Series? Probably not, but I think he's, a valuable addition at a place of need given the injury to Walker.
One guy whose name that I kind of latched onto a little earlier today, the New York Mets acquired Oakland A's starter Paul Blackburn. Now, he got off to an unbelievable start this year for Oakland. I think he was 5-6-0, hadn't hardly given up a run. Then he kind of leveled off, and then he got hurt, and he's been out for a couple of months. But he's coming back and apparently going to be available to the Mets the last month and a half. Could they get lightning in a bottle there?
I think you're getting more of a solid type of guy again. You look at who he's been the last couple of years, ERA 4.2, 4.4, 4.4. Again, this is kind of who he is, a solid number 4-ish reliever who will help you.
All right, Cleveland added Lane Thomas yesterday. Alex Cobb injured all season with the Giants, but the Guardians give themselves a better shot against the likes of the Yankees and Orioles down the road.
I think the addition of Lane Thomas was a really nice addition. Right-handed hitting, athletic outfielder, power, speed, arm, can do a lot of things for you. But I think the Guardians missed an opportunity to really add more. This is a year where they have the pitching staff, but probably the best bullpen in baseball, and for once they have a good offense this year. This was the time for them to trade some of their higher end prospects, go get some impact talent. They didn't really do that. Again, Alex Cobb hasn't pitched all year. Fine back end guy when he's right. Thomas, good right-handed complement in the outfield. But I think this was a year Cleveland should have pushed the envelope a little bit more, and I think they missed an opportunity to do that.
All right, how about the Yankees yesterday with Jazz Chisholm? He's already paid dividends with a couple of home runs, although one of them was off a position player. Still counts. Chisholm seems like he's going to be a bright lights type of guy to me. Get him out of Miami where nobody knows where he is, and now he's on the spotlight, and I think he seems like he's going to like that.
For me, Jazz Chisholm is so mercurial. I said at the time, this is either going to go spectacularly or be an abject disaster with nothing in between. Either he's going to flash the big smile, play with energy, that left-handed power is going to play really well in New York, or he's going to sulk and swing and miss a ton, and Yankees fans are going to turn on him immediately. I thought it was 50-50. Either way it could go. So far, it's gone the good way.
All right, Randy Arozarena to Seattle. You mentioned earlier that the Mariners you thought might get some more guys, but is Arozarena a lightning rod for them?
Absolutely. People are going to look at his season line and say he hasn't been very good, but it was really just a really terribly slow start. Since the beginning of June, he's been one of the best hitters in baseball, hitting about 290 with an OPS over 900. Even going back to mid-May, it's been pretty good. He's exactly the type of guy the Mariners needed, and they did not pay a high price for him at all. I was shocked how low it was, Aiden Smith and Brody Hopkins. My shock is just the Mariners didn't do more. Randy Arozarena needed to be like one of 5 bats they acquired. Instead, they acquired him and Justin Turner, who age has finally caught up to. He was ageless for a while, but it's finally caught up to him.
Yes, Father Time undefeated, we say on this show many times. Philadelphia Phillies get closer Carlos Estevez from the Angels to go along with 2 All-Stars on the back end, Jeff Hoffman and Matt Strahm. And, oh, by the way, Jose Alvarado. Yeah. Talked about the Padres being really good now on the back end. Seems as though the Phillies are also.
The Phillies are the best team in baseball, and they just got even better. They are the team everyone is chasing in the National League. They also acquired Austin Hayes, which I think was an interesting addition. He's an all-star in Baltimore, really struggled this year, got squeezed out of playing time, but the Phillies need some outfield help. He's got right-handed power. He's got some speed. Get him into just a different, different voice, different hitting coach, different teammates. That has a chance to pay dividends for them. I wouldn't be shocked to see if he has an uptick and really makes a difference for them.
Finishes strong. We talked about the Dodgers getting Flaherty today. What about getting Tommy Edman and Michael Kopech yesterday?
Yeah, Tommy Edman gives them a lot of what they needed. Another shortstop option. Again, what you love about Tommy Edman, he's just fundamentally sound. He's a heady baseball player, makes contact, can run, can play multiple positions. He's the kind of Swiss Army knife who will help you come postseason time. I'm going to be fascinated to see if they can help Michael Kopech. We talked about this. Guys in dysfunctional organizations, move him into a healthier system. Kopech has always had explosive stuff. He's never thrown strikes consistently. If you're the Dodgers, can you help him just a little bit? And maybe if you do, you get potentially, it's late inning stuff. So I think the Dodgers did really, really well at this deadline getting these guys, and really they didn't give up a whole lot to get them.
Yeah, I wish you would have said the Dodgers did terrible at the deadline, but they didn't. Cardinals yesterday got maybe the biggest name starter yesterday anyway, Eric Fetty from the White Sox, and our old friend Tommy Pham goes back to St. Louis. Cardinals, any good for them?
I think the Cardinals are actually the sneaky winner of this deadline because they got 2 impact players.
Interesting.
Look, trading Tommy Edman hurts a little bit, but I mean, they got 2 really good players and really did not give up a whole lot at all. So I actually think they're a team that really helped themselves. A lot of the National League playoff contenders really helped themselves. They're one of them.
Yeah, wish all the National League playoff contenders had not helped themselves. One last team, the Atlanta Braves. Bring back World Series hero Jorge Soler from the Giants.
It's very random.
Trying to get, well, look, he got him 1 World Series. No way he can get them another, right?
Hey, they're getting the band back together. They brought Jorge Soler back. They brought Luke Jackson back. I mean, I was kind of waiting for them to trade. They already have Eddie Rosario back. I mean, they're getting the whole band back together. I think, Soler was a little bit of a salary dump from the Giants' perspective, and look, if you're the Braves, why not go for it? They need some outfield help. The aforementioned Eddie Rosario has not been great for them. So I think at the end of the day, the Braves, they got better. They're already a great team, even without Acuna and Strider. So yeah, they're in a good place.
All right. Well, Kyle, you were amazing for 2.5 hours. He was on with Craig and Annie, and on with us for an hour and a half during this trade deadline. The information invaluable to our fans. I know that. And I feel like I'm a little smarter after talking to you as well.
Me too.
Thanks for checking in with us, Kyle. You're welcome on the program anytime.
Real quick before Kyle goes, I loved having Kyle right in front of me because anytime a trade went down, I just looked at his face to see whether or not it was a good or bad trade.
Good or bad.
So it was great.
Yeah,
appreciate it, guys.
You did a great job.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it, and happy to join you anytime.
All right, thank you. Kyle Glaser there, Gwynn and Chris back. Much more still ahead. Probably be some more trades that have not yet been announced, so don't go anywhere. We'll keep you up to date on all of that. Also, open up the phone lines. Get your thoughts on the Padres' acquisition of Tanner Scott when we return.
Annie and Elston.
Yeah, the pickup with another power arm in that bullpen. I mean, A.J. Preller is doing the right thing here. He's got a rotation that spins the ball better than anybody else. And now we're talking about a guy who's come a long way from when he broke in with the Orioles. And went back and looked at it, he's always had a great arm, right? You see the velocity, pretty much what it was in his first full season in 2018. But look at the vertical release point. Back in 18, nobody was talking about vertical approach angle. That is throwing the ball with a low arm angle to the high point in the zone, and he has done that so well with some mechanical changes. Here he is back in 18 with Baltimore here. Watch the delivery now. Again, it's a good fastball, but you're going to see a very different delivery now here with the Marlins. Much lower release point. A lot of ride now with this fastball. Here's the difference.
That's Tom Verducci and the folks at MLB Network talking about the Padres acquiring Marlins all-star closer Tanner Scott. Big move of the day for the Padres. Welcome back to Gwynn and Chris. Chris Ello, Tony Gwynn Jr., Kyle Glaser was with us the first 90 minutes of the show. We really appreciate him being a part of our trade deadline coverage here, brought to you by San Diego Roundtable Pizza. Matt Skraby alongside as well. Thought we would take some phone calls here, Skraby. We don't, we got a day where the Padres are making moves. They're trading a lot of big-name prospects. I think some of the fans, from what I can tell on the chat, from what I can tell on Twitter, this seems like a very 50-50 thing out there. It doesn't seem like a 100%, hey, I'm ecstatic to have Tanner Scott, and I would have been willing to give up anything to get him. I think there's some people who feel like the Padres paid way too much for another reliever when they'd already acquired a reliever over the weekend in Jason Adam. There's some people that are saying, look at the Dodgers. They got Jack Flaherty and had to give up much less. I read a tweet just a moment ago that said the Dodgers acquired, in the last 2 days, Jack Flaherty, Kevin Kiermaier, Tommy Edman, and Ahmed Rosario, and only had to give up one of their top 15 prospects. I saw another tweet that said, if you look at the Padres' preseason top 10 prospects, according to Keith Law, they have now traded 8 of them. And that includes getting a rise. It includes Dylan Cease, and it now includes getting Jason Adam and Tanner Scott. So the Padres have wiped out, really, their farm system, except for Ethan Salas and Leonardo DeVries.
Leo Dallas.
Leo Dallas, thank you, Leonardo. He's a painter.
And Leonardo da Vinci.
He's a painter.
Hey, DeVries is painting home runs right now.
I know he is. So that's kind of the question here. Did the Padres, did they do the right thing? They taken too big of a risk here? Did A.J. Preller panic and trade too much? I think there's all of those thoughts are kind of coming out here in the last hour and a half or so.
It is mind-boggling to me to see the chat right now with the amount of people that are angry that the Padres
are
really
trying to get flat out angry,
trying to get better. Like, yes, they gave away a lot for Tanner Scott. We'll see what happens there. But if Tanner Scott comes through down the stretch when we need him to, it's all going to be worth it. Adam Major, I know that he's a little bit ways off from being like a full-time rotation guy. We saw what he could do. He couldn't throw strikes. Graham Pauley swung it at a pitch that hit him in the face, and I just wanted to say that. But Graham Pauley wasn't great either. Not to say that they're not going to be great down the road, but they are not contributing at this moment. And they have all these contracts locking up big-time players for the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years. So,
right. Well, the other side of this is the fact that Tanner Scott is a rental. He's a free agent at the end of the season. And the Padres, along with giving up Adam Major and along with giving up Graham Pauley, also gave up the top pitcher in their farm system, Robbie Snelling. He's gone.
But and Tony said this thing too. What if the prospects, he didn't say this, I'll say this, I won't put this in Tony's mouth, but what if the prospects just aren't as good as perceived?
Well, we'll all find out. I mean, that's what makes this all great. And that's what makes this all interesting. Is, what are your thoughts on it? And you can have a bunch of different ones, 833-288-0973, if you'd like to join the program. I want to hear what you think. Is there anybody out there that's just ecstatic to get Tanner Scott? As I said to Kyle Glaser and to Tony earlier, if the Padres win the World Series this year with Tanner Scott helping lead the bullpen and working with Suarez and Jason Adam as an unhittable 7th, 8th, 9th inning trio, and the Padres come up champions, I wouldn't have cared if they traded Salas and DeVries if you could tell me they'd win the World Series. So there's no way they traded too much if the result at the end is, getting to a World Series. But I think that's also what Kyle Glaser was, underscoring.
Yeah.
They've kind of put themselves in a situation with these moves and by trading what they have that they're putting a lot of their eggs in this year's basket. Maybe that's where they should be.
I think everybody has to take this year's trade deadline, and they have to put Dylan Cease and Luis Ariz in that for the Padres, because even though those weren't deadline acquisitions, they were huge acquisitions.
Well, they're part of the reason why you've traded away your entire top 10 of your farm system.
Because now you have maybe a shot. You have a shot at going deep in the playoffs. I don't know how to make people happy, Chris. I don't think I feel like, because I do this a lot.
There's no such thing in sports talk radio.
I do this a lot where I get mad at things that I shouldn't be mad at, but like the amount of people that are like crying, that's a figure of speech, over the loss of Adam Major and Graham Pauley and guys I've never even heard of are kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy to me. It's kind of crazy to me.
All right, while you recover and we get some of the phone lines lit up at 833-288-0973, let's check some traffic.
From the 97.3 The Fan Traffic Center, here's Kelly Danick.
Traffic is sponsored by Valvoline Instant Drive-Thru Oil Change, your trusted instant drive-thru oil change. Yeah, we got a few problems here, guys. One of them is this new crash on eastbound King Freeway right before the 805. Looks to be blocking middle lanes. Also traveling on southbound 805 right before Sweetwater, crash in the clearing stage. You're also going to find it on westbound 8 right at the northbound 67 connector ramp. Vehicle went off the roadway, struck a tree over to the right shoulder. Tow truck is rolling up to assist with that. Stop by any of the 30 San Diego Valvoline Instant Oil Change Centers. You don't have to get out of your car, and it usually only takes 15 minutes or less. Plus, get a free courtesy check of your tires and battery. Visit SoCalOilChange.com for directions and discounts. SoCalOilChange.com. I'm Kelly Danick with Gwynn and Chris, San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan.
All right, we got some good phone calls coming up here. Fans want to chime in on this thing. The Padres have gone for it here. There's no question. Tanner Scott, the reliever, joins Jason Adam, the reliever that was acquired over the weekend. And the Padres, other than Ethan Salas and Leo Dallas DeVries, pretty much wipe out their farm system in order to try and make a run at the Fall Classic. Dodgers, in the meantime, get Jack Flaherty. They also get Kevin Kiermaier. They also get Tommy Edman. They also get Michael Kopech. They also get Ahmed Rosario. They part with only one of their top 15 prospects. That on its surface doesn't sound like an even deal.
It doesn't.
But we'll see how it all turns out. Like I said, if you win in the end, it really isn't going to matter what you gave up.
I have a programming note real quick. This just came in, Chris. But we are going to carry A.J. Preller's press conference live at 4 p.m. here on the station.
All right. Well, with that coming up, let's get the phone calls in now then. Let's go to Jed in Little Italy. Start us off with some of your thoughts on what went down today, Jed.
How you guys doing, first of all?
Pretty good.
Very
How
good.
about you?
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Doing good. Thank you. Honestly, I'm stoked about the trades. I'm happy about it. And I think Padre fans that are upset about it need to realize that the organization's still chasing their first World Series. And until you get that first one under your belt, you kind of have to go all in on these certain opportunities you get. If you keep worrying about the future, you may never get that first one. So I think we take this strong back end of the bullpen and ride. If we had this strong a bullpen all the way up until this point, we may be playing for the division over the next 2 days because the bullpen's cost us quite a few games. So take our starting pitching, this offense, and strengthen the bullpen. Let's go ride.
All right, I gotta say something right now.
What?
I gotta say something
Oh my
right
gosh,
now.
what?
I'm saying, ready?
Thank you, Jed.
I'm saying it right now.
What? Wow. Jed, you just got a standing ovation from Chris Ello. That's incredible. I don't think he's ever done that before. I'm serious. I'm being dead serious.
It's either that or I had to stretch my legs, one or the other. Thank you, Jed.
Jed.
Very good. Yeah, I like how he said it. And that's the one angle to look at this. you got to go for it when you got the shot.
You do.
But if you get around to next year and you have no one left to trade at the trade deadline, we're going to be getting complaints about what we did this year.
Yeah,
I just
you're
know
right.
it, Skraby. I've been through this so many times.
Me too.
I know what
We've
the
been
people
through it
are going to say.
together.
I told you last year we gave up too much, and now we don't have anything left to trade.
Guess
You're
what?
going to hear it.
AJ
Gonna hear it.
Changed the team completely in this last offseason. He can bring in the prospects again. I feel like it's going to be fine.
Okay. All right, we'll hear from A.J. Preller, live press conference in 15 minutes. Right now, we'll hear from Zach in El Cajon. Zach. Go on
so I'm just going to
go on the attack, Zach.
I'm going to piggyback on what that guy just said and make everybody realize that it is about the here and now. You know, there's no guarantee that we're going to have a future. You know, some guys could get hurt. Things can happen. Look what happened to you, Darvish. Look what happened to certain things. So go after it. Bring it to the fans. Let us experience what we did from the 2022 when I was at the game. You know, best moment I had in my life. Everything's about the here and now with this team. And, you know, the farm system may be what they say gutted, but who's to say these guys they just didn't draft could do something for us next year? You never know. You know, the way these kids are nowadays, it doesn't take them much to get to the major leagues or get better to be able to trade for newer, you know, already major league players. And if they're thinking about the guys that they let go, they weren't in the majors this year. So it is what it is, and let's just ride. You know, I want to see a World Series before I leave, so that's all I care about.
We all want to see one.
Thank you, Zach.
There's no question, Zach. Thank you very much.
So is it now "Let's Ride"? Is that our new mantra?
I guess so. The last two callers are both gone with that.
It didn't work for Russell Wilson.
No, it is not a successful phrase.
No,
not a
it's just
successful
not
phrase
at
at all. Let's go down the board to Justin in Encinitas. Hi, Justin. Welcome to the show, sir.
Padres country. Let's ride.
No. We've started something here.
I agree with everything that was said. I have no problem with letting the prospects go, but can you guys make me feel at all better about our starting rotation moving forward? I mean, I didn't love watching Adam Major come up every 5 days, but what are we doing? What's the plan there?
You know, Justin, I think that's fair, and I brought it up during our opening discussion with Tony and with Kyle Glaser. Like, if you would have traded Snelling and you would have traded Major and you would have traded Graham Pauley and you would have given me Jack Flaherty, which seems like you maybe could have gotten based on what the Dodgers had to give up.
I hope someone asks AJ this.
I'm sure somebody will. Hopefully he'll have to answer this in the press conference, but I would have felt a lot better than getting Tanner Scott. Tanner Scott's great, but the Padres really need a starting pitcher right now. But I will try to answer this now. I think it's going to be a few things. One, Brian Hoeing, who also came in this trade, has some experience as an opener. The Padres don't normally go with an opener, but maybe for a couple of turns they use this strategy and then build on this great bullpen to finish a game or two until Musgrove comes back, and then you've got your 5 starters, with Vasquez being your 5th and being a question mark. Maybe Martin Perez catches a little lightning. I hope they don't give him as much rope, though, as they gave Rich Hill last year.
Yeah.
You know, 1 start, maybe 2 for Martin Perez.
Agree.
To see if he can get it done in the number 5 spot. But that is your answer right now, Justin. I don't see any other way that they can solve their number 5 issue unless I give you one more. Johnny Brito, who they sent back to the minors.
He's got some arm
to try to
soreness.
work on stretching his arm out. He's healthy again.
He's back.
He's
okay.
back.
All
He'll
right,
be
good.
healthy again. Maybe he is your answer for a couple of starts in the number 5 role.
Do you buy into the whole thing? Like, it tells me that Joe Musgrove is coming back. They feel good about that. It also tells me that they didn't go out and get a starting pitcher because they believe Yu Darvish will be coming back.
I hope you're right. I just hope you're right. I don't know if that tells me anything, but I certainly hope you're right. Thanks, Justin. Good phone call there. Josh, San Diego, line 4.
Time player. No, just kidding.
First time player. All right, Josh.
Okay, save
Good for
that,
you.
Josh.
How are you?
No, hey, I'm great. I'm just, driving home. I hate to see Graham Pauley go. My son had a really good connection with him at spring training. We just saw him in El Paso, so I hate to see the kid go, but I like the prospect that he gets to play more. You know, if he gets to Miami, he's going to – I'm a big fan of hoping the players get to play.
No.
Season ticket holder, I go all the time. I love seeing them. I love seeing these players.
Sorry, Josh. We're going to have to let you go. It's not your fault. Faulty phone line does happen from time to time. You know what I'm hearing so far? And it's a small sample size, Skraby.
Yes.
But all of the people that are being really critical of A.J. Preller and critical of trading too much and saying that we got, the Dodgers stole their guy and we got made look bad, none of them have the guts to call. Because so far, the first 4 phone calls have all been, I love what the Padres have done so far. I don't know what we've had on the phones is a good sample, though, of what we're seeing elsewhere.
No, I agree with you. I get where people are coming from because there is a part of me that says, what about the future? But the future doesn't matter if you don't get to the playoffs this year. The future doesn't matter if you can't figure out some sort of, plan for next year. You know what I'm saying, Chris? I don't know if I'm making good enough sense.
No,
here.
I don't know what you're saying.
I don't think I did. Yeah, I didn't make good sense there. I understand that
I
you're
can
worried
help you
about
oftentimes, but I don't think I can help you this
I understand people worried about the future, but the team has major league players under control. Maybe Tanner Scott is a rental, but they could re-sign him. Who knows? All I'm saying is, the team's going to be fine next year.
They gave up a lot to get him. There's no question. Here's another thing to consider. Going into today, Braves, Mets, Padres. Those 3 teams have the 3 wild card spots. Mm-hmm. Okay? So the Padres are in. The Mets are in. The Braves are in. But here's the thing. The Padres are only a half game right now ahead of Arizona. They're only 2 up on St. Louis, 2 up on Pittsburgh. Giants, Reds, Cubs kind of still in the hunt. My point being, did Tanner Scott's acquisition just make that gap much bigger? Or is it going to be sweating it out to the final couple of days of the season just to get this wild card, even with Tanner Scott and Jason Adam?
We also have to take into account.
Because I don't want to bring up the possibility that they somehow miss it. Because if they miss the playoffs now, that's going to be kind of a debacle. I hate to tell you, Skrabe.
Well, we're going to have to wait for that. We're going to have to wait for the debacle. We can't have a debacle before we even get there.
I don't want a debacle.
I know.
But I'm saying if they don't make it after trading all of these prospects, not going to be a good look.
It's not. It definitely isn't. But let me just say this, too, because this is a common theme. AJ is trading all of the prospects because he's trying to save his job and he doesn't care about the future. I don't think that's true.
I disagree with that 100%. AJ's too much of a competitor to worry about stuff like that. But it does kind of have that look about it. Let's go to Drew in Carlsbad. Thanks, Drew, for joining us. Hello. Hello, Drew.
Hello, Drew.
Hello?
Yes,
hey, you're
on the air.
Hello?
Yep, you're on.
Hey, so obviously Morahone has been throwing really, really well this year. He came up as a starter, so what are your guys' thoughts about, since we have acquired 2 big pieces on the back end of the bullpen, trying to transition him back into a starting role?
A couple of things. Number one, on the round table, I've brought that up 3 or 4 times this year.
And what?
Putting Morahone in as a starter.
What'd they say?
Every time they say, I don't know what I'm talking about, and they tell me that's a really bad idea. Here's why they say it's a bad idea, because Morahone has already pitched more innings this year than he ever has in any professional season. And can you honestly count on him to be a starting pitcher when he's already pitched 42 innings, which is basically 20 more than he's ever thrown in an inning? He's never stayed healthy. That's the biggest problem with Morahone as you look at his career. But I personally like it, Drew. I just don't think anybody else does. See where it goes. Stay online, everybody. We're going to hear from A.J. Preller, live press conference coming up at the top of the hour. But I'm sure that will make you think of some more questions and opinions. So if you're online, don't lose your spot. If you're not online, you want to join us, I want to get your thoughts on what's happened and what's about to happen. an A.J. Preller press conference on the trade deadline day, Gwynn and Chris, is right there for you.
Gwynn and Chris are ready to go.
Yes, we are. 4 o'clock is the time, and welcome back to it. Chris Ello and Tony Gwynn Jr. is down at Petco Park. He's no doubt on his way downstairs to listen in to what you are about to listen into, and that is a press conference with Padres general manager A.J. Preller. We're going to play this thing for you in its entirety. It's going to be commercial-free, so you will get to hear everything straight from the Padres general manager. If you're just tuning in on this 2024 trade deadline program, we have been updating you all day long on the goings-on in Major League Baseball. Our 2024 trade deadline coverage presented by our good friends at San Diego Round Table Pizza. A couple of quick programming notes before we get to the A.J. Preller press conference. Tomorrow morning on Ben and Woods, 7 a.m., Skip Schumacher, manager of the Marlins, is going to be on the program. He will no doubt talk at great length about Tanner Scott, who was the big acquisition of the Padres today. At 8 o'clock tomorrow, following his press conference now, you're going to hear A.J. Preller on with Ben and Woods. So that's tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. And then also tomorrow morning at 10 a.m., our baseball roundtable with all of us involved. An hour of commercial-free Padre talk at 10 a.m. tomorrow. So great day, or great way to kick off your Wednesday tomorrow here on 97.3 The Fan. All right, while we wait for A.J. Preller, a recap of what has happened today from the Padres' perspective. Tanner Scott, the all-star closer of the Miami Marlins, has been acquired. Scott's numbers are sensational, people. 6-5 record, 1.18 ERA, minuscule. 1.007 whip, minuscule. 18 saves for a team that's only won about 19 games.
Seriously.
So, he's pretty much the reason they win any game that they win. But what did it cost the Padres? Cost them 3 big names in their farm system: Robbie Snelling, Adam Major, and also Graham Pauley. They also gave up another minor leaguer in the deal. The Padres did. The Padres, though, also acquired from the Marlins, and this could be a sneaky addition in the trade, right-hander Brian Hoeing, Hoeing, 1-2 with a 2.7 ERA this year. Hoeing made 2 starts in a opener role for the Marlins. I bring that up because perhaps that's what the Padres do with Hoeing over the next few weeks, and I'm just guessing that's a possibility since the Padres did not really add the starting pitcher they were looking for. Although they did add a starting pitcher, it is Martin Perez, the left-hander from Venezuela, veteran, Texas Rangers mostly, but this year, injury-plagued with the Pittsburgh Pirates, 2-5, 5.20 ERA whip, really unsightly, 1.651. And as Skraby and I talked about, if you're going to use Martin Perez, you better prove it right off the bat. Because they don't have a lot of time to give him 8 or 9 starts down the stretch.
No,
So
you
either
said
get
it
it
last
done
segment. The Rich Hill experiment last year taught us this.
We can't do that.
No.
One other trade was made by the Padres today. Enyel De Los Santos, the reliever you love probably to dislike because he gives up a lot of home runs. He's on his way to the New York Yankees.
Yes.
And the Padres have acquired a minor league outfielder, Brandon Lockridge.
De Los Santos is also going with another minor leaguer, Thomas Balboni Jr.
Okay. I'm worried about losing him. All right, so that's that. Jason Adam, of course, was acquired over the weekend by the Padres from the Tampa Bay Rays. So all of a sudden now, the Padres bullpen appears on paper anyway to be stacked. Robert Suarez, Jeremiah Estrada, Adrian Morejon. Now add to that Tanner Scott, Jason Adam. Oh, by the way, Yuki Matsui, Wandy Peralta. They got a lot of options down there.
They do.
And, he's still got Stephen Kolek, et cetera, et cetera. But the Padres going all in on this bullpen and hoping that they get the return of Musgrove soon. Joe Musgrove, maybe. He'd like to say he's only a few weeks away, and would also like to add that he doesn't care if he opens.
Yes.
And Tony kind of jokingly said, well, maybe that was his way of saying I'd rather do that than go down to the minor
See, that's
leagues.
why I'm glad we have Tony,
and
'cause I
make a couple of those kind of starts down there. But
didn't even think about that.
I didn't either. But hopefully Musgrove comes back. If so, you got your 5-man rotation with Vasquez, and if you're able to get Yu Darvish back, even if it's by September 1st. That would be a hell of a trade acquisition when you think about it, because right now you don't have him at all.
Yeah, I mean, you can get him, you can get Fernando back, you can get Joe back, you can get a lot of guys back.
Padres are going in for the win here in 2024. And it is interesting that so many people, nobody on the phones yet, but so many people in our chats and on Twitter are so negative about the Padres going all in. And I'm bringing a lot of this stuff up because it's what's being brought up, and I want people listening to understand there's a lot of different sides to all this. But at my heart, Skraby, I just want a chance to win every year.
Yeah.
And that's what the Padres are trying to give us.
Yeah.
So why are more people not happy about that?
On the Skraby show last night, I believe it was Dwayne said, do you think he's selling the farm too early, basically? And I said, no. And we talked about the grass isn't always greener on the other side. If the Padres let A.J. Preller go, I mean, the new GM is likely going to want his own guys in there. It would kind of be a reset for the organization now that he shouldn't keep his job just because he's there. But I don't think that A.J. Preller is viewing this as, oh, you cut me off, A.J. Preller, Chris?
He cut you off because he's about
Dave
ready.
Cut me off. I'm the only one who could hear Dave.
I see. All right. Well, you're getting cut off because now we are going to hear actually from A.J.
AJ,
Preller.
it seemed like the focus coming into this trade deadline was adding innings and strengthening the staff in every way that you could. You got starters, you got back-end relievers, look like a long reliever as well. How satisfied are you with what you were able to accomplish heading into this deadline?
Yeah, I think we feel, again, like I said, I think being able to add to the pitching staff and being able to improve the pen, get some reinforcement to the rotation as well. And we looked also at the outfield depth component also. So I think for us to hit on a few of those areas of needs with players that we really liked as a group, I think we're excited.
Did it kind of play out as anticipated, or was it because it was such a strong seller's market you had to make some adjustments along the way, or how'd that play out?
Yeah, no, I think we were prepared. I think we had a pretty good feel of, the teams that were going to move, the players that were going to be on the move. In terms of every deadline's a little bit different in terms of the pace and how it works. For us, it was pretty consistent flow of conversation over the last really week or so. And it felt like it was going to be a pretty active deadline, and it was.
What did you think of the market in general, especially the prices for starting pitching, and how did you weigh out that versus, paying a pretty good price for a reliever?
Yeah, we explored it, obviously. I mean, I think, we looked at it and kind of had the two areas kind of neck and neck and just looking at what was available. I think we felt like, though, again, the more relief options and, from an impact standpoint, we felt there were some guys that could really impact our bullpen. I think, again, we looked also at Musgrove's situation, his ability to hopefully come back here at some point in time and help us, and obviously weighed out the cost from a return standpoint of both starting pitchers and relievers, and, ultimately ended up feeling like maybe a little bit more strength on the relief side, some more options, some more impact. We went that route, but we explored, both starters and relievers.
How did the prices in this market compare to anything you've seen in a deadline?
I don't know. I think obviously, I think my guess is, just hearing a lot of people are are talking about, hey, heavy prices for players here at the deadline. Every deadline, like I said, is a little bit different. I didn't quite feel that way. I thought in general, I thought that in terms of returns, there weren't too many that I felt like were shocking or anything from that standpoint. I felt like, it was kind of, in areas that we thought were pretty fair, honestly.
AJ, what was the purpose in your mind? What was the thought in adding those two back end guys? What does that do for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of ways you can go about building, championship teams and rosters and pitching staffs. I think for us, especially the postseason, you get additional rounds, less days. You just need to have I think it's a little bit less, right now where you can get, 2 or 3 starters and ride those guys and 2 or 3 pen guys. You need like a really deep 13-man staff. A lot of different ways to do it, but I think what we've seen in the when we've been in the postseason the last few years, and obviously historically, you just need some guys that can get out some big time hitters, and if that's as a starter for 7 innings, that's extremely valuable. But we saw it a few years ago with Suarez and Hader getting huge outs throughout the first couple of rounds of the playoffs for us, and the more guys that can go get elite hitters in the postseason, the more options Mike and Ruben and the group have. We felt good about it, and again, I think there's a lot of different ways to build a staff, but just having a group that, hopefully shortens the game. We looked at it, and we've seen some teams win championships that way. Hopefully that's a real strength for us in the next couple of months.
Some GMs hold on to their prospects and others don't. I just wonder, where is your prospect list now? Like, how do you view your farm system?
I think honestly, like a part of us being able to have these conversations just continues to be like the players that we're able to select, develop, and honestly, like I think the depth of the system. Honestly, I think we felt like, that we have some guys, some pitching in our system, some guys that have taken some steps this year. That I know, like by the publications and the rankings, 3 of the players that we traded, Robbie Snelling, Adam Mazur, and Dylan Lesko. We thought, we think highly of that group. I expect those guys to pitch in the big leagues and do really good things. We also, though, are super excited about about a group right behind those guys and that are pushing those guys. And in some ways, I think for us, when we talked about our system and our depth, that was a strength for us, honestly. It was looking at the pitching side of things and where we were at from that standpoint. And, again, some really healthy conversation amongst our evaluators and our coaching staff over the last few weeks and months about this guy or that guy, and it may not be the mainstream guy that may be out there in terms of in the rankings. We've got some guys that we feel pretty good about. And again, same thing in the big leagues. Like you look up, and whether it's a Matt Waldron this year going up and pitching well, or Randy Vasquez, pitching comes from a lot of different ways, and we feel like in the system we've got some guys that have taken real steps and are going to contribute here. And I think that enabled us to at least have conversations on some of our quote unquote top ranked guys, et cetera. So
just to follow up on Kevin's question, a lot of people in your position across the game will talk about we need to be sustainable, we want to win every year, and as a result, we don't like to trade guys who are considered top prospects. Obviously, it's never been something that's held you back. I wonder why not.
I mean, I think obviously different ways to look at value. I think every decision we make, it's not like we're constantly talking. Eric Katsenda, Eric Grubner, obviously Peter, in the past. I mean, it's constantly looking at the current year and then blending that with what we look at over a 3 and 5 year period. And you never want to just like, hey, we're going all in for this 1 year period. I heard that in 20 and 22, I believe, when we made some moves. There's been deadlines we've been very active. There's deadlines we haven't been that active because we just didn't meet the values that we put on certain players. But I think in those years you look up, and a year or two later we still have a very competitive team and a really good farm system, and players that are coming up, good young players that we feel good about. So it comes down to like if you can, if you have a scouting group that gives us the ability to make those decisions, and then it's not like a philosophy, hey, we're going to trade our prospects or anything like that. It's just like, again, some of this is moment in time. Some of this is a team that we believe in, and we think there's some value out there. And we also know that we have other good players in the system, and they can't all play on the field at the same time. So that's all part of our decision-making process.
AJ, what is the state of your rotation now, and how do Perez and Hoeing fit into that? Does Hoeing fit in as a starter? And just kind of evaluate like why those guys, and maybe why not one of the like a top-tier guy that was.
Yeah, if you want, you come to it. We're going to go sit down with Schulte and Ruben and kind of figure that out exactly where what we do here for the next 24, 48 hours with those guys. Always, AJ, come on down. Not you, Kevin, but AJ's good. Yeah, I think again, I think we explored pretty heavy the starter market as well, and ultimately, every beauty's in the eye of the beholder. Different teams have different asks. We were open to the reliever market, which, some teams are, some teams aren't probably. I think you kind of get into an area where maybe certain teams, they want to pay for the starter versus the reliever. I think for us, we went down both paths pretty open-minded from both standpoint here over the last few weeks. And we just didn't have those deals that we felt like from a starting standpoint lined up for us. So we pivoted and went down some guys that we feel really good about with Tanner and Jason on the relief side. So
making it through the deadline with those top two prospect guys, Leo and Ethan, like how do you react to that? How do you feel about that, having those guys still there? And obviously you were linked to some of the bigger names on the starting market. Like was it ever a consideration that those two guys might be involved in something?
Yeah, I mean, we'll check in on, like obviously if there's players that are of impact, we want to be involved, at least check in and see where it stands. So we're making decisions with full information, and I think that's how you make your better decisions. Yeah, we think very highly, just specifically of Leo, DeVries, and Ethan that you mentioned, Salas. We think those are guys that are going to play here a long time. You're talking about a switch hitting shortstop that's opening a ton of eyes, and in the minor leagues right now, and then a left-hand hitting catcher that's only 18, and again, a guy that we've had some really good ones here, over the last few years with Tatis and obviously Jackson, CJ, James Wood, some of those guys, they fit in with the top of the guys that we've had in the system. So you always listen. You always are willing to at least hear what other teams have to say. I think kind of the cool part of the deadline is we have our own evaluations, of what we think, but just kind of hearing what the industry thought about those guys kind of confirmed what we thought, and in terms of just hearing how the teams evaluate them. But ultimately, we're just, really happy that they're with us right now for sure.
AJ, how did Tanner Scott come together? When did those talks pick up, and what do you think maybe got it over the hump for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think over the last couple of weeks, we knew that he was going to be moved. I mean, I don't think there was any secret there. I think he's obviously over the last 2 years, he's taken some real steps as one of the more dominant relievers in the game. Left-handed is a real factor too. I mean, we're some really good left-hand hitters that we're going to have to go through over the next couple of months to get in the playoffs and win in the playoffs. And really just looking at from an impact standpoint, you have a guy that's similar to Robert Suarez. He'll pitch, he'll take the ball. He's done the 1+. He gives us a chance with the left and right in the back of the pen, and some really good setup guys to match up really at any point in time. So that was something that was on our radar. Definitely picked up over the last few days. I think as we kind of got more of the prices of the different pitchers, relievers, starters, etc. And again, I think we put a really strong package in front of them. So I think one thing we have never been scared of is we're going to trade players, and I think. Maybe it's I don't know philosophically right, wrong. It's we're going to trade players that are going to show up in the big leagues. At least our organization is, that are going to do really good things. But if we get what we're looking to do, and it works for us both this year and over the next 3 to 5 years, we're content with that. I think Billy Beane used to tell me that when I would talk trade with him. He would always tell me, I've traded all-stars, MVP, Cy Young winners, and 20 years later, we've done a lot of winning, and I'm still in this spot. So I think we take it we're going to trade talented players. That's a compliment to our scouting group, honestly, and our development group. So I think the fact that we put a strong package in front of them, the fact that we stayed on it, we were open to intrigued by having somebody with his impact there. I think all those factors led to it, and obviously I think too getting Brian Hoeing in there. Doing it for. A player that's, an expiring contract. I think for us, having some carry forward value, we did that a few years ago with Matt Waldron. We've done that, kind of in the Soto deal with Brito and Vasquez, and just having somebody that we feel we can help and continue to grow and develop. That was definitely a part of it here in the last 24 hours that put it over the top for us.
AJ Preller press conference at Petco Park right now. You're listening live on 97.3 The Fan.
To win in October, how much does getting a Tanner Scott, maybe somebody who people on the outside might have thought you didn't have to have, how much does that fit into that mindset?
Yeah, no, when teams that win that go into the playoffs, win in the playoffs, obviously it's plus performers and guys that can do some pretty special feat, and some special things on the field. So yeah, I think that definitely when we sat down and evaluated, certain players that we'd have 2 years of control, certain players that are rentals that could start a game for us, but maybe not quite the impact, versus somebody that we feel over the last 2 years has been as good as any late inning reliever in the game. So I think that was obviously a big part of what we thought about and why we ultimately made the deal.
You typically do try to get guys that you have a few years of control on. With Tanner Scott, what was the conversation like there? Did you have any hesitancy about the fact that he's a free agent after the season?
Yeah, no, it was definitely, it was always part of our consideration. I think the rental player, I think, again, like it's you got to make sure that you're getting somebody that we feel like has a real chance to impact us. And then also, like I said, I mean, I think getting Brian Hoeing back in that deal where we have somebody that we think, we're excited for Ruben and the group to kind of work with him over the next few days, months, and into the off season. Like, I think somebody, at 27 years old, I believe, and he's filled different roles, and we think he has some more ceiling and upside. So I think all of that was a factor, but we weren't going to do a short-term deal for somebody that we didn't think had like a chance to really impact the pennant race, and once we got in, could potentially be somebody that we could, take off with and go through some different teams if we need to. So I think that, along with the fact that we got Hoeing, I think that was those were big factors for us.
AJ, how much the fact that Estrada is already at his career high in appearances and Morejon's tied for his career high in appearances, how much did that factor in the decision to maybe pursue relief pitching here?
Yeah, definitely part of it as well. I mean, we talked about it with the rotation, because we obviously, like, I think every team's searching for innings and searching for guys in the rotation that could pitch, and, we understand that too, but, we looked at there, we get Martin Perez from a rotation standpoint that can help that out and take some of the guys that are kind of going into some different areas on the rotation side. But the same thing in the pen. It was like the same conversation. Morejon and Estrada have been tremendous for us here this year. But just having some more options for Schulte, I think we've all seen it. Like, there have been a few times here throughout the first half of the season where we get into that, 6th, 7th inning. You get into that, like, every day kind of, you don't want to get in a point where you're only going to 3 guys, and in any spot, winning spot, or even, we're up, 5-1, and we feel that pressure to go to those guys to hold on and get that win. Just want to be able to give Mike and the group, like, the opportunity to, like, hey, we're going to give somebody a day or two down, and we're not going to lose anything from a quality standpoint. And I think ultimately we made that decision that, that attacking it that way, it's going to be better for the group. It's going to be better for those guys kind of going through this first full season for them. And hopefully that's the way that we win a lot of games here in the next couple of months.
And then to follow up, you mentioned obviously acquiring Martin Perez. Did conversations ever get anywhere for, say, Jack Flaherty or Tyler Anderson, or maybe one of the higher end starters?
Yeah, we checked in on all of those guys. I think I don't, at the end of the day, like, didn't feel like in the last 24 hours we were particularly close, on that grouping, but it was a check-in, it was conversation, it was back and forth. We were going through different players, et cetera. But again, I think over the last 48 hours, this was we had different paths at the same time, like you always do. But ultimately, we kind of started looking like it was going to be more down this path, and then, finding some different starting pitching that we felt like could take the ball and, again, can do a good job for us in the last couple of months, and we ended up lining up with the Pirates on Martin.
I know you want to win every single season, but did you in this front office feel any extra pressure this year, considering how last year unfolded and missing the playoffs?
No, I mean, I think probably one of the bigger things is, like, the way that the team has played in the first half. Obviously, there's been, some ups and downs and some hot and cold stretches, et cetera. But, I mean, just the fact that, like, we have a lot of guys playing really well, in terms of, like, the depth of our lineup, our roster, having some guys having some really good seasons. The way we've kind of battled back in a lot of spots. It wasn't like, this last road trip, I think I said it the other day, it wasn't like, hey, we went 7-2 versus 5-4, hey, we're in, here we go. Like, we felt like we had a good team, but I think the way we've played, like the style of ball, seeing some guys have some really good years, I just think it was like, hey, like, we feel like we have a team that can compete and win, and I think that was more of it than looking at last year, a team we felt like should have gone to the playoffs and didn't. But I don't think it's like a reaction to that. I think it's more of like seeing how we're playing this year as a team, some of the good things we have going on, and just wanting to supplement that team that we think can play, deep into October.
And if you can on Tatis, I'm sorry. I think Mike said he hadn't been cleared for baseball activities. How optimistic are you guys that he will return during this regular season and be the Tatis that can really help carry a team?
Yeah, I think so far, again, like, I think it's kind of, we get our week-to-week checkups with Tatis. I know he's, and again, like, I think, like, swinging the bat, playing catch, I think those things are good for him right now. I think it's just a matter of when he's going to be able to get on the field, start running, start progressing from that standpoint. We'll have more of an update here. I give kind of an update every 4 or 5 days and, like, take it from there. But we expect him to be back, and exactly when, that's kind of, we still got to get a little bit more information from our doctors. But every report I've gotten has been really positive. And I think, the next couple of days we'll have a little bit more information about when he can really start progressing. So then we'll have more of a definitive time frame on, exactly when he comes back. But we're expecting him to be back for sure.
Hi, AJ. Hassan Kim has a little bit down year as offensively. Do you think that fact hurt his value as a trade chip? So why do you keep him even though his contract gonna be end after this season?
Yeah, I mean, Ha-Sung is a huge part of our team. I think he brings energy. The energy he brings every day. Obviously, you're going to win a championship. It starts with pitching and defense, and he's an elite defender in the middle part of the field. He's still the at-bat quality is good. He'll take a walk. He's got the ability to hit the ball out of the ballpark, and I think for us, again, I don't. It was never really a conversation for us in terms of talking about Ha-Sung here at this deadline. I think he's a real part of what we're doing, and our team, and I think if we're going to win, it's with Ha-Sung, at shortstop and doing the things that he can do well. And I think again, Ha-Sung, he works really hard. I would expect him to swing the bat really well here over the last couple months and be a huge contributor for us.
Joe has some pretty ambitious thoughts on when he can come back. What are your thoughts on when and then kind of how? Like, how much do you want him to be built up?
Yeah, I think some like Joe, Tatis, Peralta. I think those guys, it's kind of at this point, like I said, we're kind of going week to week and see where it's at. He made his first rehab outing today, Joe. It sounds like he came out of that really good, in a good spot. So I think we'll huddle back up here again, next 24, 48 hours with Joe, with the medical team, and kind of map out what his schedule looks like. But hopefully he's feeling great tomorrow and he can progress from there. He threw, 35, 40 pitches today, and now we just keep progressing it from there. And I think, get to a spot where hopefully here in the next few weeks he can impact us at the big league level.
I believe that is it for the AJ Preller press conference, everybody. I don't know what happened to Chris.
You just shut it down?
Well, I think it's over.
I think it's over. They didn't have a finish.
Now it's in Spanish.
Now it's the Spanish part?
Yes.
I think we heard enough.
We heard
Did
a lot.
everybody hear enough?
Yeah, we heard a lot.
I mean, we could hear a bunch of Spanish questions, but I don't know that that'll be.
Well, they're going to
be good for some
maybe
of
the
our
same
listeners,
questions.
but not all of them.
I took some notes. I know you took some notes as well.
I took no notes.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I took no notes. Look, what's AJ going to say? He believes that they didn't give up too much to get Tanner Scott. So he's excited about it. This is what they need to make their run for the pennant here in 2024. They didn't really have a shot, according to AJ, at Flaherty and some of these other guys. And they decided that, it was going to be adding to the already deep bullpen. That was going to be the best way to get where they want to go. They also did add Martin Perez as a potential fifth starter. And obviously, A.J. Preller feels real good about everything that happened. And if he didn't, he wasn't going to tell us that anyway.
Yeah, why would he?
I got to be honest with you guys.
I did
that was a disaster.
If I was GM, that's probably how I would do it. But AJ's not doing that.
Yeah, that was a disaster. Sorry, I just didn't go the way I wanted it to. All right, so that was the live press conference with A.J. Preller. We'll take a break. Your thoughts on it, 833-288-0973. More Gwynn and Chris ahead.
From the
Yeah, we checked in on all of those guys. I think I don't, at the end of the day, like didn't feel like in the last 24 hours we were particularly close, on that grouping, but it was a check-in, it was conversation, it was back and forth. We were going through different players, etc. But again, I think over the last 48 hours, this was we had different paths at the same time, like you always do. But ultimately, we kind of started looking like it was going to be more down this path, and then, finding some different starting pitching that we felt like could take the ball and again can do a good job for us in the last couple of months, and we end up lining up with the Pirates on Martin.
AJ Preller, just moments ago at his live press conference down at Petco Park. Welcome back to Gwynn and Chris. We're an hour away from Sam Levitt checking in with the Padre pregame show. Yeah, there is still a game tonight.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a rather important one.
Oh, yeah.
Padres are taking on the Los Angeles Dodgers on trade deadline Tuesday. Tyler Glasnow will pitch for the Dodgers. Matt Waldron will pitch for the Padres. First of two, the game tomorrow night, really good matchup. Hall of Famer to be Clayton Kershaw against Hall of Famer last time out, Dylan Cease, coming off of his no-hitter for the Padres. That's tomorrow night's game. But for tonight, we'll be with you for the next hour before Sam takes over on the Padre pregame show. If you're just tuning in, Gwynn and Chris Ello, Matt Skraby alongside Tony Gwynn Jr. down at Petco Park, of course, and also Kyle Glaser, big part of the show today, our baseball guy, coming in for a couple of hours to lay some great baseball knowledge on all of us this afternoon. If you're just tuning in, the Padres have acquired Tanner Scott, all-star closer, Miami Marlins, reliever, left-hander, 6-5, 1.18 ERA, 18 saves, 1.007 WHIP, one of the most highly sought-after relievers on the baseball trade market. The Padres earlier this weekend, or over the weekend, got Jason Adam, a lockdown right-hander from the Tampa Bay Rays. So the Padres are going huge on the bullpen. And you heard A.J. Preller say that was the path that has worked best for them on this particular trade deadline. A.J. was asked about getting another starting pitcher, maybe the likes of a Jack Flaherty who went to the Dodgers, maybe the likes of an Eric Fetty who went to the Cardinals, maybe the likes of a Paul Blackburn who went to the Mets, or Alex Cobb who went to the Guardians, or Kikuchi who ended up going to the Astros. The Astros ended up trading their number 2 prospect for Kikuchi. He's got an ERA of about 6 the last 2 months. He hasn't been great. But starting pitching was hard to come by. Padres did eventually work a deal with the Pirates for veteran left-hander Martin Perez, but the numbers on Perez are not good. 2-5 ERA, well over 5, WHIP at 1.65. I would cross my fingers if the Padres are going to send him to the mound too often down the stretch. Big question mark: did the Padres give up too much to get Tanner Scott? They traded away their top pitching prospect in Robbie Snelling. They also traded away Adam Mazier and Grant Pauly. So some guys, two of which have been in the big leagues for the Padres this year. They didn't do well. Robbie Snelling, top pitching prospect, also traded in this deal. And if you go back to the beginning of the season, when they acquired Cease, they acquired Arise. The Padres have now basically traded away every one of their top 10, top 11 or 12 prospects, save for Ethan Salas and Leo Dallas DeVries.
I think that's a win.
That's what they have left.
That's a win right there.
A.J. Preller addressed that and said, we've got other guys pushing the guys that we got rid of.
Yeah.
That's another way of his explanation for being able to trade that big of a block of prospects. Says, we got other guys that are, pushing them.
Yeah.
So, and look, AJ is right about that. We just look at a baseball prospectus somewhere that rates all of the prospects, and everybody has to have a number.
Yeah.
But just because you trade your number 4 prospect doesn't mean that's the 4th best player in your system.
Yeah.
Because somebody rated him as such.
It's true.
So
it just tells me
it's all relative, as they say.
I don't know when Robbie Snelling would have been ready for the major leagues, but it wouldn't have been this year most likely. It's probably maybe not even next year. But these guys that they're getting are guys that are going to step in right now. This is where the Padres are at. They're at a point where they're trading for major league ready players because they need major league ready players.
But did the acquisition of Tanner Scott and over the weekend Jason Adam, did that create a gap for the Padres in the National League wildcard race? That is the question that is going to have to be answered over the next 2 months.
We're also not talking about this. The Padres have been playing pretty good.
Pretty well?
Pretty well, yes. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
My mom would be rolling her eyes.
Grammar, pal.
No, my mom would be rolling her eyes right now because she would correct me too. But I think they've been playing well, and so if they're going to be playing well, you kind of have to think that this is the team that we're going to get the rest of the season.
AJ Preller said that a lot of the reasons that they went out, did what they did, was in a way a reward for what his team has done to this point.
True.
You want to back up what they've done. You want to give them the best opportunity to keep on doing what they're doing. He feels they have done that.
We have breaks to make up, Chris. I'm sorry.
Sorry, we'll take one and then your phone calls. Thanks for calling. I know you're there. 833-288-0973. We'll get to most, if not all of you, when we come back on Gwynn and Chris.
Ben and Woods on the Fan.
I'd stick with us, Gwynn and Chris, until about 5:30 today. And then it's Sammy Levitt and the Padre pregame show. Chris Ello, Matt Skraby. Together, Odyssey Palace Studios. Tony Gwynn Jr. down at Petco Park, where tonight the Padres take on the Los Angeles Dodgers. Dodgers got better at the trade deadline, or they certainly did on paper.
On paper.
Jack Flaherty, Kevin Kiermaier, Michael Kopech, Tommy Edman, Amed Rosario, all picked up by the Dodgers in the last couple of days. Padres picking up Tanner Scott, all-star closer from the Marlins. Martin Perez, lefty from the Pirates. Jason Adam, shutdown reliever from the Tampa Bay Rays.
Yep.
That's the big haul for the Padres. We will run down all of the deals, all of the important ones that were made today at the top of this hour. So if you're just tuning in, you want to find out who your favorite team got or got rid of, stick around. I'll have it for you in about 10 minutes. Right now, traffic, and then we're going to get to some phone calls.
From the 97.3 The Fan Traffic Center, here's Kelly Danick.
Just a couple things to mention here. Westbound 8 cleared that crash at the 67. Now West 8 just past Texas Street. We have reports of some debris in the slow lane. Also, collision on southbound 805 near Mesa Boulevard. A couple cars involved in that. They're over to the right shoulder. On the coastline, southbound 5, right before the coaster station, we have reports of a two-vehicle accident over to the right shoulder. I'm Kelly Danick with Gwynn and Chris, San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan.
All right, let's go to Chan. Chan, welcome to the program, sir. Your thoughts on today's proceedings?
On my thoughts on today's proceedings, I think it was good. I think everybody. I was on Twitter a lot today, or X, as you can call it. I think everything with AJ Preller is good. I think he made the right decisions. I mean, people are underestimating that. He hasn't rebuilt his farm system 1 or 2 times. He's done it a lot, and he's proven that he's able to do it. So I think just because we're trading away prospects for the chance of making the World Series or a big playoff run, I don't think that's a big issue. I think we have to have trust in what we have. And with Niebla as our pitching coach and with what Schilt's done for us so far, I think we have a good thing going on right now.
I hope you're right, Jan. Very good call.
I like that outlook.
Similar to a lot of the phone calls we received this afternoon. If all you heard was phone calls, you would swear the city is beyond ecstatic at the trade for Tanner Scott today. But if you're on Twitter, on our chat, you seem to realize that people seem to be far from ecstatic.
Those people are starting to fade out. But this is what AJ said during his press conference that stuck out to me. Different teams have different asks. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So I'm thinking that these guys weren't as valued as we all think that they're valued.
Well, the interesting thing to me is that the Dodgers would get Jack Flaherty for what, and Kyle Glaser follows this stuff so much closer than I do.
Yes, me too.
But he said that, he told me that the Padres basically paid 5 times more for Tanner Scott than the Dodgers paid for Jack Flaherty. Now, I don't know whether that's true. That may be just his opinion, but maybe that's a lot of other people's opinion too. But that's a frustration that I have after today, that if the Dodgers got the real big starting pitching catch of the entire deal and hardly had to give up anything, that just makes me mad. It's like I would want why didn't the Tigers listen to what the Padres were offering?
Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, Chris.
I heard you.
He's making $14 million right now. He's a rental. I don't necessarily think that going all in and sending everyone for Jack Flaherty would have been the best move.
But they went all in and sent everybody for Tanner Scott.
And he's a rental as well.
So,
but he's going to cost less than a starter would in the free agent market. Like, Jack Flaherty's probably going to make in the $20 million range next year.
Let's go to Adam in Carlsbad, bottom of the board.
Okay.
Mr. Adam. How are you?
Hey, guys.
Adam,
hey,
do you know
right.
do you know Jason Adam?
I do not. Although,
I know,
don't worry about
I'm
that
just
bad
throwing you a
joke.
silly question. Showing you some.
I was born in Miami.
Oh, there you
and I
go.
actually do know Bruce Sherman, the owner of the Marlins. They got no
Okay,
money.
well, there you
But
go.
hey, couple things. Number one, if you'd ask any Cubs fan if they like to trade for Aroldis Chapman, which is the same deal here in 2016, they would tell you yes forever. And on Snell and Lesko, it's never been truer outside of Skeens and Strasburg, but there's no such thing as a pitching prospect. So overall, I think it's a great day for the Padres. That last road trip was killer, and let's beat the Dodgers these next couple days. Thanks, fellas.
You're welcome. Very
Nice
good.
call.
Adam.
Nice job, Adam.
Chiming in.
Yeah.
With the rest of the happy crew today. Why is it then when I think the phone callers might be kind of in a good mood, they just come in hot?
I don't know.
And when I think the phone callers might be a little angry and feisty, they're happy as a larks.
As a clam, I think that sometimes when you're on the other side, as much as because a lot of people are saying this trade is okay, let's do it, let's go forward. I feel like they don't want to call in because they have the unpopular opinion.
Kathy, Los Angeles, but our great Padre fan and friend. Hello, Kathy.
Hey guys, I'm one of the happy ones because every single year we complain about, AJ's gotten rid of all these prospects, and the next year, miraculously, he has more prospects to get rid of. So, they're prospects.
Yes, they are.
And
he is good at coming up
everybody's
with other
upset
ones.
and everybody's upset we got rid of Mazur. It's like, well, they were also upset that the fact that we had to start him because he wasn't that great. So what is it?
That's very true, Kathy.
Oh, yes.
I get that a lot.
The hypocrisy of it all, Kathy.
It's
and you're right on top of this situation.
People hate it, then they love it. I'm like, wait a second, you said you hated it like 2 days ago. Which side are you on, people?
I'm on the side.
Kathy's on the side of trying to get Bobby Witt Jr. in a Padres uniform. So
she and her Kansas City ties.
Yes. Thank you, Kathy.
Thanks, Kathy.
Thanks,
Good
guys.
talking to you as always. Do I have time to squeeze in any?
Sorry, I just
Whoa,
said no.
I guess not.
No.
Tried to squeeze you in. I'll try to get you on the other side of this. More phone callers. I hate to say it, but I'm looking for somebody that's actually upset that the Padres traded all that for Tanner Scott. Haven't found a phone caller yet to say that. Also coming up at the top of this hour, I will recap all of the big names that moved today on baseball's trade deadline. Stick around. More Gwynn and Chris coming up.
and say, oh yeah, I miss you. So we got really good relievers. We got Adam there, Turner, Hoyme, and then it's gonna be excited for everybody here.
Luis Arraez is happy that his former teammate is coming to the Padres. We welcome you back to Gwynn and Chris. The happy hour gets underway, although this has been a pretty happy group we've had on the phones, at least, over the last hour. Padres acquire Miami Marlins all-star closer Tanner Scott today. Never mind who they traded, everybody says. Here's what the Padres got in Tanner Scott. I mentioned that he posted a 1.18 ERA this year. He has also held opposing hitters to a 127 batting average this season. 127, Skraby. Like no one gets a hit off this guy.
Yeah.
The last time he allowed a run, it was still spring, June 17th.
Wow.
Did not become summer until June 21st.
I thought you meant spring training.
No.
That was a
You got to go back to spring, June 17th, the last time he allowed a run of any kind. He has held opponents to an 0.91 batting average over that span. His 1.89 ERA over the last 2 seasons is the lowest of any pitcher in baseball, with a minimum of 100 innings pitched. So basically the last 2 years, he's been the hardest pitcher to hit in all of baseball. No wonder we shouldn't care that the Padres gave up Robbie Snelling, Adam Major, and Graham Pauley. Welcome back to Gwynn and Chris. 5:02 is the time. Chris Ello, Matt Skraby alongside. Tony Gwynn Jr., of course, busy, but was with us earlier from Petco Park. That's where tonight the Padres will take on the Dodgers. Sam Levitt has the Eco Water Padres pregame, SoCal Padres pregame show coming up in about 35 minutes.
This has been a emotional day, Chris.
It's been a whirlwind. I've been
Yes.
trying, as we've been doing the show, I've been trying to write down all the trades. So, and I don't want to bore you with a big list, but I'm going to try to give you some of the key names that were moved today, in case you're just hopping in the car after work. Maybe you heard what the Padres did, but you didn't hear what everybody else did today. The biggest name that moved today went to the Dodgers. Jack Flaherty, starting pitcher from the Tigers, 7.5 ERA under 3, WHIP under 1. Scary. Dodgers add Flaherty. They also added Kevin Kiermaier, a gold glove winning. It's the Olympics, right?
Yes, it is.
Gold glove winning center fielder from the Toronto Blue Jays. Yesterday, the Dodgers added Tommy Edman, reliever Michael Kopech, and Ahmed Rosario. So the Dodgers, those are the 5 they add. Arizona Diamondbacks, they add our old friend Josh Bell. Josh Bell basically going to take over at first base right now for Christian Walker, who just went on the injured list. So the Diamondbacks needed to do something at first base. They got, yesterday, reliever from the Marlins, A.J. Puck. Puck has not been great this year as a starter, but as a reliever, he's been really good. And here's how good Puck is or was. Last year, Puck was the closer for the Marlins ahead of Tanner Scott. So that's who the Diamondbacks
There
got.
you go.
New York Mets get Oakland A's right-hander Paul Blackburn today. Cleveland Guardians get injured Giants pitcher Alex Cobb, expecting him to get healthy. They got Lane Thomas yesterday. Baltimore Orioles add not only Trevor Rogers, starting pitcher from the Marlins, but Eloy Jimenez, slugging outfielder from the Chicago White Sox, goes to Baltimore. Baltimore. Kansas City Royals get shortstop Paul DeJong from the White Sox. Also, setup guy Lucas Erceg from the Oakland Athletics. Minnesota, Trevor Richards, left-handed pitcher. Pittsburgh, utility man infielder Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, and Marlins outfielder Brian De La Cruz. That was the last trade of the day that has been announced, by the way.
It's been filed.
De La Cruz going from the Marlins to the Pirates. San Francisco Giants, who yesterday traded Jorge Soler.
They didn't have a good
Today
good
come
season.
back and say, well, let's pick up Mark Canha. So that made very little sense to me.
Jorge Soler and the Giants, I guess, I was talking to a friend. I guess they've been kind of
Didn't work
contentious a little bit.
Didn't work there.
Yeah.
All right, so that's kind of a
We
recap.
always thought, too, it was weird that Jorge Soler went to San Francisco because he's a home run hitter, and San Francisco is extremely hard to hit home
Tough
runs.
to hit home runs. Now he's back in Atlanta. Anyway, that's kind of a recap of what happened today, on top of the moves that have been made heading into today. But you're kind of up to date on everything. Big winners? Who knows? Big losers? Marlins, White Sox. As a matter of fact, you wonder if the Marlins and or the White Sox will even be able to field a team of players the rest of the season.
Oh, I chose the churro guy to start tonight for the Marlins.
They traded so many players. I mean, Skip Schumacher's going to be on Ben and Woods tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock. They're going to have to ask him how in the world he's going about filling out a lineup. They've traded pretty much the entire team.
It seems like they do that a lot. Over and over again.
Well,
do you want to be the Marlins?
Yes.
Do we want to be the Marlins who just have a ton of prospects all the time?
The Marlins have one of the worst organizations in baseball, but
they have great prospects, Chris.
Miami Marlins fans can claim something that you nor I can claim.
A World Series.
2 of them.
2 of them.
Yeah. Let's get to some phone calls. I mean, it's been a while, okay? I'll grant you that. 2003, 21 years ago.
That's so long
kind of
ago.
time for the Marlins to be good again. You know what's funny is they were getting good under Kim Ng. They just couldn't make it work, or she couldn't work for them.
No, Derek Jeter wanted out. Kim Ng wanted.
Yeah.
She kind of wanted. She didn't say she wanted out, but it sounds like
that's
she
how
wanted
it
out.
happened. Yeah, that's what happened. Let's go to Kevin in Chula Vista as we kick off the happy hour. Kevin, what are your thoughts on the Padres' move today?
Well, Chris, I'll help you out here. A little bit dubious. Look, the reality is, let's tell the truth. AJ at trade deadline, tell me who has he traded for at the trade deadline that has done one of 2 things. Either is still here or has led us to the World Series, which is the object of the game. Can you tell me anybody?
Well, he hasn't been to a World Series, so I would say
Oh,
there's
there you
probably
go.
nobody.
There's number 1. and all the people that he has brought in here at trade deadline, 0.0, they're gone. So I'm dubious. I think we have to be at this point. Look, I've said this with Matt. I've said this with the midday crowd. AJ, it will be evaluated eventually based upon the big 6 contracts that are out there. I would challenge anybody to go back and look at those 6 players, collectively put their time of service with the Padres together. Tell me when they have all played together at the same time, when have they all produced positive results at the same time, and when have they gotten us to either a championship or a World Series at the same time? Now, we've spent over $1 billion on this. So essentially, what AJ did today is he has to preserve his tenure here. He's hoping and praying that because he couldn't get the starters, and I'm with you, Chris. I don't know why the Dodgers can go get Flaherty and the Padres can't. That's a great question. But we needed a starter, and we ended up with a bunch of relievers. Maybe what his plan is, look, if the current starters go into the tank, get 3 or 4 innings out of them, I've got all these relievers, we can punch through. Maybe that's the plan. I don't know. But I'm dubious. I want to see what and how this works out. But if you're asking me about the record to date, you tell me and you tell us. Go back and look at the things that I just brought up and tell me what that record is.
Kevin, thank you very much. Well thought out call. Here's what I will say. And this is going to sound, I guess, like a defense of A.J. Preller. But part of what you're saying isn't wrong. A.J. Preller's overall record as general manager of the Padres is not great. But They are in the midst of a 5th consecutive year in which they're playing meaningful games, which I think is something that deserves a thumbs up. And I will finally say this. And in AJ's case, it rings true just as it rings true in everybody else's case. Nobody can win the big one until they win the big one.
There's a lot of GMs out there that have
There's
not
a
won
ton
a
of
World
guys
Series.
in every sport that we can all say, show me the ring. Show me the championship. I don't care how good you are. Show me the championship. How about Xander Schauffele, for example? Show me the major. Well, he can show you now, can he?
Two of them.
Two of them. I'm just saying, everybody can't win the big one until they win the big one. And then all of a sudden they're like, you're great now. You won the big one.
I think
so. It sounds like a defensive, AJ. It's not necessarily meant to be. It's meant to just say, while you're dubious, yes, you're right. He hasn't won anything, but it's only going to take one, and then all of a sudden he's going to look like he knows what he's doing.
I would say he said, tell me a trade he's made at the deadline that has worked out for the Padres. I would say trading for Juan Soto at the deadline worked out for the Padres. Look at all they got back. Kyle Higashioka. We could go through that whole thing again. Michael King. But I'm not going to go through all of it again.
Good.
But that was a trade that worked out. It didn't maybe work out. Just because Juan Soto didn't do what he's doing with the Yankees isn't AJ's fault. The chat is getting to me today, Chris, so I'm getting a little defensive of everything.
Stop reading the chat and do
well,
the show.
I'm really tired of people telling me I'm wrong when I'm not actually wrong, and I provide them proof, and then they just disappear because they're wrong.
Welcome to our world, Skraby. Welcome to our world. Let's go to John, East County guy, on Gwynn and Chris. Hi, John.
Hey guys, how you doing this afternoon, boys?
Very good.
I'm kind of along the lines of that last caller. I think they really probably did give up too much, but I think AJ's in a position where if he was in any other type of work, he would have been gone a long time ago. And I think he's got to win right now. I think if he doesn't do something big this year, a playoff run, something, I think he's gone. I know he was Peter Seidler's boy, and he hung in there with him, through managers he hired that, with no experience, and that didn't work, so I had another one, no experience. So I think we might have given up a little too much, but in his case, he's got to win now. So, I think it's probably a good trade. Get an arm. I would have liked to see him a starter, though. I mean, I don't know. We're going to have like 2 starters and 28 relievers. But I just think, it's like, hey, you got to go down. You go down in flames. You go down swinging. But if you get fired at the end of the year and the cupboard's bare in the minors, well, hey, it's not my problem. It's the next guy's.
John, you're not the only person who has given us that angle. And I will say this, you presented it very nicely and clearly, and we will find out. That's what was the first thing I said today? Do you remember, Skraby, when we had me and Tony and
yes, I think it was
and
this,
it was
actually.
Kyle Glaser on. Do you remember what I said?
I'm a clown.
That's funny. What I said was that the Padres took a gamble today, a big one. And we're going to find out. It's either going to pay off handsomely and they're going to get deep into the playoffs and go to a World Series, or they're going to come up short and they're going to look and the cupboard's going to be a little barer than they want it to be. Doug San Marcos, good to have you on, Doug. How are you today? Thanks for joining us.
Hey, I'm doing great, guys. Hey, by the way, I'm in Vista nowadays, but it's all good.
Moved over to Vista, okay?
Oh, all
We
right.
got you.
Yeah.
Get that up to snuff, will you, Skraby?
Yeah, Skraby's all over it, man.
Yeah, he is.
Hey, you know what, man? I want to say, first of all, let's go back, just a couple weeks. Our starters have been doing actually a pretty darn good job.
Incredible.
We're not that hurting. Do we need a starter? Yeah. I agree with all that, man. But to get Tanner out here, man, I've been watching that kid. That's a good acquisition, man. I like that. Maybe what they're looking at is we're becoming a finishing bullpen squad, to where we're going to finish out where we only have 4-man or 5 max, but 4-man rotation. I mean, losing Darvish was huge. That was big, man. And then having Joe out, of course, does not help at all. So we'll get Joe back, hopefully, sooner than later. And you know what? We got a bullpen now, man. And then you look at the rest of our team. If we can just get them all doing the same thing at the same time, we're going to be fine, man. I don't know that we're a World Series on our way. I think we can have a chance to go semi-deep in the playoffs, and I'm trying to be positive, man. I think we're fine. I really am. And AJ, yeah, man. I mean, I've been a Padres fan forever. I've told you guys that before. And one thing I've always said is Padres trade superstars, man. Every time they trade somebody, that guy becomes a superstar on another team, and they win a World Series. Or they, the Dave Winfields and all of I mean, I can't name them all right now, but there's a bunch
come on,
of them,
Doug.
man.
Name
They
them all,
trade
will you,
Ozzie
please?
Smith.
Name them all.
I know. There's a lot of them, though, man. There's a lot of them, but
Hey, thanks for,
that,
Doug,
that's
thanks
just
for
my
joining
point
us,
on it.
buddy. I appreciate it. Good stuff. Keep on rocking in Vista. Keep on joining us, and we appreciate your positive vibes today.
Let me ask you this, Chris.
I got to take a break, is why I cut you a tad short, Doug. Go ahead, Skrabe.
What is the goal? What was the goal of today?
To win the World Series
no,
right
no,
now.
No, it wasn't. The goal of today was to get better. Or the goal of the last couple days was to get better. I think the Padres got better. Because we have zero idea what some of these guys are going to do. And we've seen Graham Pauley at the major league level. He's way off. He might be good one day. But I think the Padres got better, and that's the goal.
Let me just throw one quick thought at you on that subject.
No, I'm done. I'm not listening.
The goal today was also to get a starting pitcher. Did
They did.
Okay.
Martin Perez?
You got him. 5:18, check of traffic, then back to finish up before the Padre pregame show.
From the
Crisello, Mr. Skraby alongside. I want to remind everybody it's Spiro's Mediterranean Cuisine. My place for great Greek food. Discover the heart of Greece in every bite. It's authentic, family-friendly, family-owned and operated for 25 years plus. Generous portions, Skraby. You will not leave hungry like I did that place in Big Sur over the weekend.
With your lamb cubes.
It's also moderately priced, unlike that place I went to in Big Sur over the weekend. Happy hour menu every day in La Jolla from 3 to 6 p.m. with all food items starting at just $6. Coronado. And if you're on your way to Petco Park tonight, don't forget you can enjoy some Spiros at the ball game. Main concourse down the third baseline near the Western Metal Supply Company building. Grab yourself a Euros or a new this year, the Horia Tiki Bowl. One more thing. If you're planning any party or special event, Spiro's Mediterranean Cuisine for catering. Maybe you got a rehearsal dinner coming up, corporate event. Ask for April when you call, and Spiro's will help you plan a customized menu for your party. Enjoy Spiro's. Somebody who enjoyed what the Padres did today is MLB Network's Tom Verducci. I think he was on this program maybe like the week we started, 7 years ago.
No. I've been trying to get him.
Not
his
this program?
schedule just is not aligned, or he just doesn't really want to come.
Yeah, I'm
going to
go with the. I'm going to go with the latter.
Every time he texts me back, and I'm like, he's a nice guy. He texts me back. That means he's open for more invitations, but it's never worked out.
Never worked out. Tom Verducci said today, quote, AJ Preller hit the ball out of the park with these deals. San Diego is a dangerous team, not just now, but in the postseason. Here's another guy that likes what the Padres did today. Chris Mad Dog Russo.
Oh, Mad Dog likes it.
Mad Dog likes it. Better start printing World Series tickets. Mad Dog said the Padres are very dangerous after what they accomplished at the trade deadline.
But what about 8 years from now? Are they going to be dangerous 8 years from now, Chris?
I said already, Skraby, I don't care who they gave up if they win the World Series.
I don't care who they give up if they get to the NLCS.
They could give up Steve Garvey's retired number. I wouldn't care if they win the World Series.
It's so hard to get to a World Series.
Yes, it
as long as you go
is.
deep in the playoffs, I feel like that's a success. Yes, you want a World Series. That's the end goal.
All right.
But it can't happen every year.
Where did the Padres rank in the MLB Power Rankings like 3 days ago before the trade deadline?
Oh, I know this.
Do you know?
Yeah, Matt Snyder is our CBS Sports ranker.
Yeah, well, Matt has him always a little higher than everybody else.
Well, he had him at 14 prior to this week's rankings, and this week's rankings, after the good road trip they had, he has him at 10.
He had him at 10. I'm looking at an article here online that has ranked all the teams in Major League Baseball now that the trade deadline is over. So did the Padres jump up from 10? Did they stay about the same? Did they fall? And keep in mind, this is just, one website's opinion.
Yeah, what website is this?
This is IHateThePadres.com.
Oh, no.
No, it isn't.
Oh,
I don't
no.
know. I don't know what it's called. It's some website.
PowerRankings.com?
Whatever it is. They say that the best team in baseball now is the Orioles. Because the Orioles picked up Eloy Jimenez. They picked up Zach Eflin. Anyway, they like what the Orioles did. Dodgers are number 2 after their trade acquisitions. Phillies are 3. But here's what they wrote about the Phillies. And I think it has merit.
Okay.
It says the Phillies have struggled since that London series. Do you remember that?
I do.
They're only 20-21 since then.
Really? I didn't realize that.
They have the 5th worst ERA in baseball out of the bullpen since that time. That's where the addition of Carlos Estevez comes in. Estevez was the best reliever moved at the MLB trade deadline. Now, I don't know if I agree with that. Tanner Scott was moved at the trade deadline here to San Diego, and we already gave you some of the numbers on Tanner Scott, who hasn't given up a run in a month and a half. I'm not so sure that Tanner Scott wasn't the best reliever moved at the deadline.
You know what
but
we haven't...
They say that that's the case here.
Sorry, this just hit me, and I don't
What
think we've
hit
talked.
you?
I don't think we've talked about this today.
Uh-huh.
But with the addition of Tanner Scott and Jason Adam, hopefully that means that Robert Suarez doesn't have to do any more 5-out saves, 4-out saves. He could just do his standard 3-out saves and save his arm for the postseason. That is a concern, and now it's not a concern because these guys are going to do it.
I have one thing to say to that.
Uh-oh.
Boom!
Boom! Is that right? You like it?
Might be good.
Okay.
Might be good.
Finally.
He'll probably get a 5-out save tonight, though, just
I know.
for fun.
I know, and then someone's going to hit me up on my Twitter and tell me I'm wrong.
Phillies are third here after the trade deadline. Power rankings continue. After the trade deadline, Yankees 4, Guardians 5, Brewers 6, Mariners 7, Braves 8. Really? Braves added Jorge Soler. So what? Number 9, Astros gave away their whole farm system for Kikuchi.
Yeah, which was an overpay.
10, Twins didn't add anybody. Padres 11. There you go. It says the Padres lost out on Jack Flaherty and other top starting pitchers, but they will beat some teams with their bullpen now.
Ooh, there we go.
It wasn't cheap to acquire Tanner Scott and Jason Adam, and San Diego knows it. With that said,
who is this person writing this?
I think it's Kevin. Chula Vista wrote this article. With that said, the Padres bullpen now becomes this team's strength. If the Padre lineup can continue producing, et cetera, the new-look bullpen will have plenty of leads to protect.
I like the sound of all of that.
According to this, anyway, the Padres are about where they were in the power rankings before the trade deadline, as opposed to now.
I don't know how that's possible. They didn't trade any real MLB players, I guess.
It'll be, it'd be interesting tomorrow to look at the baseball perspective ratings of farm systems. Did the Padres just go from the number 6 system to the number 60 system?
This happened
in 2
when they
days?
traded for Juan Soto. Remember, they went down in the rankings, and then they had enough people. They built the farm back up.
Well, they're going to have to do it again.
I got to tell you, Chris, I'm exhausted today.
You're a little tired?
I'm a little tired.
Well,
I've been too emotional today, Chris.
You've been a little emotional. It's a good thing you don't have the Skraby Chronicles coming up. Instead,
it would be daily gripe the whole hour.
You'd gripe the whole hour. We've got our guy Sam Levitt checking in with the Padre pregame show. Tyler Glasnow, Matt Waldron. First game, 2-game series. I can tell you this. Jason Adam is in uniform.
Yes, he is.
Saw him interviewed down in the clubhouse on Twitter before the game. So, Jason Adam is available tonight. Obviously, Tanner Scott's not going to be available tonight.
Where are the Marlins?
They're in last place.
No, I know.
Oh, where in the world are the Marlins?
Are they at home?
I can't keep track of where the
Let me
Marlins
see.
are,
Let
so
me
you'll have to
see.
tell me yourself on that one.
They are in Tampa, so not close.
They're going to be a ways away, so yeah, it'll be a day or two
So
before
when
we
his
see.
horse and carriage gets here, he'll be able to go.
Well, hopefully the Padres are flying him out, because if they're waiting on the Marlins to ship him, it may be horse and carriage.
It may be, or he's on Southwest or something in the C group.
Frontier.
Oh,
by the way, that you brought that up on the C group. Did you know that Southwest is ending the numbered boarding system? Everybody's going to have their own seat now.
And this is the end of Southwest because
really, you think it ends the whole airline? Like the business goes belly up because of this decision?
I think what it's doing is it's showing me that all they really want is money. They do not care about the airline. They just want money, and they're going to take away the free bags too soon. Get ready for that. I want better peanuts, and I want more than just a half a can of ginger ale if I'm going to be paying you for my bags, okay?
Warm ginger ale.
I always ask for ice, and then they roll their eyes at me.
Thank you so much to Kyle Glaser today. He made us sound really smart for an hour and a half. We probably gave back all that goodwill in the time since.
Yes.
But we tried. For Tony Gwynn Jr. and Matt Skraby, Chris Ello, hope you enjoyed our trade deadline coverage. Tomorrow morning, we got a special Padres Roundtable. It gets started at 10 a.m. Don't miss that. And don't miss this. Coming up next, Sam Levitt's Eco Water SoCal pregame show. Then Padres and Dodgers on 97.3 The Fan.